Madhouse Bar Talk, where the drinks stay spittin'. Views going wild like a monkey gone rogue, running his own lane in a circus of smoke. Guido hit the eject, dipped out the scene. Jimmy steered the chaos, kept it lean and mean. No co-pilot needed. He thrives in the clash. Controversies, the stash. Raking views with a dash. Madness on the mic, sipping truth like it's gin. Every episode's a fight. Who's the champ of the spin? Randoms on the stool, spill tales from the void. Jimmy plays the villain, but the people stay buoyed. Solo flight, no wingman, just the heat. Questions unscripted, got him squirming in the seat. Joe Rogan whispers, but Jimmy got roar. Clickbait machetes, hacking straight to the core. Bar feels alive when the topics get steamy. Listeners keep clicking, saying this fool's dreamy. Drama be the fuel, chaos be the plan. Welcome to the Madhouse, hosted by one madman.
All right, here we are with Tony Viola. Sentenced to prison for 12 years, served almost 10. And it turned out that the prosecutors and the FBI and everybody was just withholding evidence.
Pretty much. The government started with an incorrect theory. They claimed that I owned a mortgage company and stole $46 million.
Wait, they claimed you actually owned a mortgage company?
Yes. The government actually did not know. When I say the government, the FBI, the Cuyahoga County prosecutors, the Ohio Attorney General working through this task force actually did not know what business I owned. Somebody told them, an informant told them, hey, Tony was at this mortgage company. There was a lot of shady things going on. It's true. I'm not the only guy named Tony. What do you know, right? I owned a real estate company. We never did mortgages. We never borrowed money. And yet they kicked the door in live, nation's largest mortgage fraud case. Tony stole $46 million from the mortgage company. The indictments actually say that I owned two companies that I did not and never got money from.
You're kidding me.
Not a cent. I never got a cent from Transcontinental Lending or Family Title Services, yet the government claimed I owned and controlled them and orchestrated this nefarious mortgage fraud scheme to steal $46 million from J.P. Morgan Chase and Citigroup, which are the two of the largest banks in the world.
So, wait a minute. So they, this is what mind blown. So
You're telling me.
Yeah, that's wild. And your attorney didn't say, I mean, you didn't have an attorney that said, hey, that's not his company.
Well, it's a long story, but the short answer is defense attorneys. I'm very grateful now. I have this lady named Kim Corral, who's the best. But most of these defense attorneys play ball with the prosecutors. And, you know, when they raided my company, I said, this is absolute rubbish. I do not own these companies. I did not steal money. I had over 150 employees. They would say, this is ridiculous. Tony's not a crook. We wouldn't work for him if he was stealing money. And the lawyers told me, this is Jay Milano, who's a prosecuting, loving defense lawyer. You can't say that. You can't say that on TV. You have to. You're upsetting the prosecutor. You're upset. And I said, I'm supposed to worry about Mark Bennett's feelings, the federal prosecutor and the state prosecutor, Dan Caceres. They indicted me in federal court and state court at the same time. And my business was being destroyed. My reputation was being destroyed. And I said, I'm supposed to say no comment? No, I'm sorry. Guilty people say no comment. And I never said no comment in my life. And journalists would ask, and I would say, I'll interview with you, and I'm happy to tell you what's going on. The problem with what happened was the government had this huge televised raid, press conferences, and these arrogant prosecutors do not ever want to admit they're wrong. So even though they knew pretty early on, that the case was fundamentally flawed, I never got any money.
When you say they, you mean, are you talking Cuyahoga County? Federal?
Well, they worked together through this task force. The federal prosecutor, a guy named Mark Bennett, pretty early on recognized that this was nonsense, that I did not own these companies, and so did Dan Caceres, who is a state prosecutor, who's now the senior assistant Ohio Attorney General. So I'm on TV saying this is rubbish. I did hire a lawyer. We did tell them this is absolute nonsense.
Wait, you got me on here talking shit about the senior assistant attorney general? I didn't know that.
Senior assistant Ohio Attorney General Dan Caceres, yes, who helped himself to the Crime Victims Fund, and he's got a trail of misconduct.
Ooh. Oh, Jesus, that's scary. I don't want to involved in that. Yeah, that's a big time, huh? Holy shit.
Right. So essentially, the government, there was a fork in the road. We could either dismiss this case, leave this guy alone, but they had this big televised raid and press conference, didn't want to do it, or they could start taking steps to make the case winnable. So the first thing that happened was we had asked for the computers from these mortgage companies that I don't own. We were going to have an expert, forensic accountant, go through to say, well, maybe there's something wrong, but Tony never got any money. I mean, fraud is about stealing money, right? Where's my money? So
Yeah, it was a $46 million they said you stole.
yes, they did.
What was your net worth at the time they said that? I mean, a guesstimate.
Oh, I don't know, $500,000 maybe if you valued my house and my car and my company and my retirement account.
Yeah,
I mean, we were,
everything,
yeah, something like that. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Not
And
even $1 million.
No, we were very modest living. I live in a little house in Cleveland Heights. I drove a Mercury Topaz. You know what that is? You ever see those?
You drove a Mercury Topaz?
I did.
And went to prison for 10 years for stealing $46 million?
Yes.
Oh, you should have put better use to that money.
Well, you know, the other thing is, well, I guess.
That's criminy.
I guess. I mean, I love Cleveland, but I wouldn't have been here in the winter if I had $46 million. You know what I'm saying? January in Cleveland.
Jesus.
So we actually got letters from these supposed crime victims that said I didn't borrow money and I don't owe them any money and that they don't know who I am. And so that's the thing that usually in America, let me tell you what's supposed to happen. There's supposed to be a crime first. My God, someone is shot. Let's call the police. And then we figure out who did it, right? Here, the government was alleging that I stole millions of dollars from these banks, these enormous banks that certainly could defend themselves. I mean, you miss your car payment, they're calling you, right, for $400.
Yeah, right.
So I supposedly stole $46 million and nobody said anything. Nobody called the police. Nobody said, don't do business with this guy. So we were quickly able to show this was absolute crap. This theory of the case, these poor innocent banks are not victims of realtors and people trying to buy a rental house. But the government just
Buy a rental house. What do you mean?
I mean, they were indicting buyers. They were indicting people who bought a rental property.
Okay. Wait a minute. Now, is that the time? Is that? Now, I'm just trying. I don't want to make sure I'm not mixing this up. I remember they had a conversation with there was a whole thing going on right around the mortgage crisis time.
Yes.
There was a company that was supposedly buying up places real cheap, working in some repairs into the contract, and then somebody would buy it repaired essentially, but they weren't doing the actual repairs or something. Is that tied into the same case or is that a different case?
Well, we are real estate brokers. We're realtors. Okay. So we sell houses for anybody who wants to list a house for sale. And if you're a buyer, we show houses that are on the multiple listing service.
Yeah, no, there was a girl named Emily that did it here in Lorain County that I used to do repairs for her. She would sell them. There was a deal that the banks had put out, some kind of like they would sell the house, but you could put the repairs into the mortgage or something, right?
Yes, there's an FHA loan that you can do that. You can borrow money for the repairs.
Is this what you were involved in at the time? Is that I mean, is that the one? So am I thinking of the right case at the time?
You may be. I mean, they blamed us for houses that were not properly repaired.
Okay.
But again, as a realtor, we're not buying and selling houses ourselves. We sell properties. If you call me and say, "Hey, Tony, I want to buy a 2-family house in Lorain," we're going to go to the computer, print up all the 2-family houses in Lorain, and start driving around and show you the houses.
Sure.
So, you know, the government claimed I was in this nefarious conspiracy with certain of these property sellers. But the fact is we sell houses, we show houses to buyers and the buyer picks the house. We don't say to the buyer, hey, you got to buy this one over here that this guy or Emily fixed. We don't do it like that. We just show properties within a person's price point that they can afford.
I remember them doing that. Emily did a bunch of, she's in Florida now, but she did a bunch around here where we would go in and maybe repair the roof or fix some cabinets or the concrete in the front was messed up or whatever it was that needed done.
Yes, people have been repairing houses since the beginning of time. There's nothing wrong with fixing houses.
No, there's nothing.
Or selling houses.
But this is the case I'm thinking of.
Perhaps.
This is what the case. I remember it. It was like supposedly the biggest thing.
Yes.
Did you live in Avon or Sheffield?
No, I lived in Cleveland Heights always in a modest house with the Mercury Topaz. But there were houses all over the place.
Was it a brand new Mercury Topaz? I mean,
it was in darn good shape, let me tell you. It was the Topaz GS model, which is the highest model.
The highest model. Oh, top of the line Topaz. There you go. There you go. See? Yeah, maybe you are guilty. So anyways, they go after you and they keep evidence from you, essentially. Correct?
Well, how can you defend yourself if the government supposedly loses the computers from the companies you don't own? I mean, that's a due process violation. You can't defend yourself. The judges should have thrown the cases out right then and there and told the government, look, you seized all these computers and televised raids when you raided 12 companies. And if you don't have this evidence, I mean, so we raised this issue, but the federal judge, Don Nugent, he thought it was amusing. We lost the computers. The fabled computers. Ha ha. But as a practical matter, as a criminal defendant, you know, my business is being ruined, my reputation is being ruined, and we lost the computers. We don't know where they are. We had to have a couple of court hearings. This is all costing me thousands and thousands of dollars, and the government benefits from prosecutorial misconduct because the case is dragging on, and we have no money coming in because people don't want to do business with us. I mean, if you owned an apartment building, we used to manage apartment buildings for third parties, for property owners. Would you let me collect your rent if you're reading in the newspaper that I stole 46
not
million?
a chance in hell. No.
Right. So there's no such thing as the presumption of innocence in business.
No, I mean, you got to protect yourself a little bit, and if you hear that, you can't blame them.
No, I didn't, and that's what they said. Clear this up, Tony, and we'll do business with you down the road. But we can't do it right now. My partner, my insurance company, we won't allow it. And the government has a tremendous prosecutorial apparatus. They're leaking stuff to the news. I'm on the 6 o'clock news. I'm in the newspaper. I'm on the internet. They're having press conferences, YouTube videos. We put it on our website now so you can see all of it. Now they don't want the publicity since this case is blown up in their face. But at the time, they made me into this big, huge criminal that my family and friends and folks I worked with knew who I was, but nobody else did.
Well, we believed it. I mean, I remember it being on the news. If it's the case I'm thinking about, I believed it 100%.
People wanted to know why their house had gone down in value or why the economy was struggling. And the answer was reckless lending by banks.
Absolutely.
Not realtors showing houses to people or some dude who worked at Lincoln Electric who wanted to buy a two-family house to make extra rental income.
Right. No, you're right. You're 100%. I said that in I think it was 2007. My dad bought his first house. And my dad has been like one of these backwoods, like never paid attention to shit his whole life. I'm not sure what his credit score was, but it was probably around 500. I don't know where it was. But he bought his first house, and I remember telling my wife at the time, I go, yeah, we're in trouble. Like that's mortgage, like they're lending money to people that will not pay this money back. And I knew that at that time he wasn't going to pay it back.
Right.
So I knew that, and they were loading things into the loans too. Like I know he loaded his child support into the loan because he had back child support he owed to my mother.
Right.
And he loaded it into the loan to make sure that the loan went through. And they were doing crazy shit. It was absolutely absurd what they were doing. But that's on them. That's not on you. Well,
there's another issue too, which is in real estate, there's something called fair housing. You cannot discriminate against somebody. If you come to my office, Jim, and you say, look, I'm pre-approved to buy a property up to $200,000 or we'll pick a number, whatever. You know, we can't tell you, well, you seem like an idiot, man. I'm not going to show you any houses. We cannot discriminate. Realtors are, if you can't afford something, we can tell you we're not showing you something beyond your affordability range. But there's no basis to tell somebody that they can't buy a house or shouldn't buy a house as a real estate agent.
No, as a mortgage company, that's up to them. That's up to them.
That's the lenders, right, exactly.
That's the whole thing I've argued with Trump, with the whole Trump thing with Mar-a-Lago. They keep saying like, oh, it was overappraised, his assets were overappraised. They did their they didn't loan out that kind of money without looking to see if the guy was worth it or good for it. You know what I mean?
Right. So, but under the law, the banks are treated like a rape victim, like some innocent little old lady. Even when the lenders, we had this in federal court, where Mark Bennett filed what's called a motion in limine. You can't blame the victim. We would go through the lender files and we would find things. So, for instance, the appraiser had his license lapse. The bank knew it and accepted the appraisal anyway. Okay. Now, of course, we had nothing to do with the appraisals and the loans and stuff, but we would find these either sloppy or worse practices on the part of banks. Oh, that's no defense. You can't raise that in court. Listen, when the government wants to destroy your life and go after you, there's these thing called federal rules. They find some way to do it, and it restricted our ability to put on a defense. But the biggest restriction to our defense, there was really two key issues. One was these computers vanished. The computers are contemporaneous. You know, when we were all prosecuted, this is 3, 4, 5, 6 years after somebody bought some property. And nobody remembers what they signed 4 years ago. I mean, do you remember what you had for breakfast 4 years ago today?
And not only that, when we sign, I mean, you sign things. I've signed, I bought, I don't even know, maybe 7 houses or something.
Sure.
Like that.
Do you read every single line?
Fuck no. You don't know what you're signing. You have no clue. If we're being honest, nobody knows what the hell they're signing when they're closing on a property. Right. That's why you're supposed to pay somebody to make sure that that's okay and you're doing it right. And that's
correct.
That's what it is. Yeah.
But again, as a real estate agent, our job is not to fly to the JP Morgan Chase processing center in Chicago and say, excuse me, everybody, are you guys sure these loans should be approved? Are you following your underwriting guidelines? We have nothing to do. The real estate agent has nothing to do with that financing piece, nor should we, frankly, as long as somebody's approved. There's privacy laws. I don't, as a real estate agent or a realtor or a broker, I don't want your W-2s and your tax returns in my office where someone could see your social. I mean, we would stay away from that, except to find out that somebody was approved or pre-approved or pre-qualified up to a certain point. We're not a taxi service. We're not going to show you properties that you can't afford. Now, we had home inspectors that we would pay for if they couldn't afford it. We would try our best to be good stewards or good, we have a fiduciary duty to our clients in real estate. You want to try. What does the buyer want? They want the best property at the lowest possible price with the best terms. But at the end of the day, it's the client's decision of what property they're going to buy, if it's an investment property or an owner-occupied property. So the government was making these ridiculous statements like Tony sold houses to unsophisticated buyers. But there's no such thing as an unsophisticated buyer.
Is that what they said?
Yes.
Unsophisticated
Yes.
buyers? They said that
yes.
was in the
What am I
court
supposed
document?
to say? Hey, man, you're not sophisticated enough. I'm not. Yes, it was ridiculous. They also said if you see Tony.
I sell beer and whiskey to a lot of unsophisticated buyers. I'm just telling you.
They're coming after you. They said if you see Tony Viola at a Starbucks with the coffee and a muffin in his briefcase, that is not breakfast. That's a crime scene. I mean, that's some of the stuff that they were saying. But if you call a realtor and ask to see houses, what do you think's going to happen? We're going to show you property. I mean, that's what we do. So it was really a wild experience. But when that piece of paper says State of Ohio versus Tony or United States of America versus Tony, that's what that means. The government will not hold back. They will use all of their power to destroy and smash you, especially if you don't plead guilty. Which I refuse to plead guilty.
That's the you brought that up earlier. That's a big problem with there's a lot of defense attorneys that they fight and get a good name and then after that they start working deals with everybody and anybody, and they want everybody to bargain and plea out and things like that. And I think they get lazy. They're making their good money and they don't have to put in the work, and they just get lazy.
Well, it's worse than laziness. It is laziness, but it's even worse. A lot of defense lawyers are just essentially an investigator for the prosecutor's office. And there's a guy named Dr. Terrence Sasaki. He's on my Twitter feed. There's a guy named Brett Nolan. He can tell horror stories. These guys actually tried to cooperate with the government. And Jay Milano in the case, who's a Rocky River attorney with a big reputation, supposedly, is the worst lawyer ever. So instead of hiring him, you'd be better off to flush the money down the toilet, because if you just flush it down the toilet, you don't expect anything. This guy's telling me he's going to fight, absolutely did nothing. At my second trial, he was actually helping the prosecutors because I was exonerated at a second trial. So, but the thing is, a lot of these, it's even worse than laziness. They're actually telling their clients, go down to the prosecutor's office and tell them everything you know. And people are actually incriminating themselves or admitting things that can be used against them later. There were people that were told you're going to be immune, and they got prosecuted anyway or imprisoned anyway. So a lot of these lawyers they're so lazy that they won't even take rudimentary steps to say to the prosecutor's office, hey, you want us to help you? You have to immunize us or give us some, and just instead they're just literally sending people down there, and then the government can do whatever they want. And they've lied to a lot of these people and said, you're going to help us. And then they get prosecuted anyway. And they've admitted things or pointed out things that they may not have known. So there's big issues with the defense bar. But what a defense lawyer is supposed to do. So we've got two issues. First of all, there's supposed to be a crime. My God, and let's call the police. But here the government was saying there was a crime when the banks weren't saying there was a crime. They didn't report that I stole money or said that I stole money, and they even said I don't owe them any money, but the government said I stole money. And then the defense lawyer is supposed to do two things.
But where did you steal this supposed money from?
The government claimed that I created a scheme. I organized a scheme to say, hey, let's scam the banks out of millions of dollars by lying about how much money we have and submitting loan applications that are false, and I'm going to siphon off all the profits myself. So I would tell you, hey, Jim, go to the company, but lie about how much money you have. That's what the government claimed I was doing.
Oh, you were telling your clients?
Yes, but we don't
do that. That's what they're saying.
At the mortgage company that I don't own, yes.
Yeah, okay.
That I'm telling people to lie. But the thing is, when you actually looked at the document, it said zero. They were these NINA loans, no income, no asset loans. So the whole thing, if you looked at the actual documents, you could see there's no fraud here. There's no scam. It doesn't say they're putting any money down as a down payment, or it doesn't say they have any income. You know, basically what was happening was the banks were working under the theory that real estate just would go up in value forever.
Yes, I remember it, yeah.
Who cares how much money?
Subprime lending. It was the whole collapse of everything with that bullshit.
Yes, but the theory was even if you can't pay, the house will be worth more. We'll foreclose, we'll sell it and get our money back. That was the theory.
Right.
So the bank themselves wasn't looking. They didn't care how much money you had or how much down payment you were actually making. But the government was alleging that there was these false statements on loan applications, and it really wasn't true. And then inside the lender files, there would be things that the underwriter would say, we don't need the income. We don't need the licensed appraiser. We're waiving this. We're waiving that. And so the government's, let's go back. What's fraud? Fraud is a material misrepresentation that affects your decision making. So
yes.
If you want to buy a house and you say, hey, Tony, is there water in the basement? And I say, no, there's no water. And let's say I put the couch in front of where there's a big leak, or that's fraud.
Yeah.
You might have bought the house if you knew there was water in the basement, but you might have paid less. So lying...
Or even if you paid the same, but as long as you knew, that's all that matters.
Correct. So lying itself isn't the crime. So if you say, hey, this is a $20 million apartment building, does the light bulb in the closet work? And I say yes, and it really doesn't. That's not material to the deal or whether or not you would buy it. If I tell the loan officer her dress is pretty, but it's ugly, it has to be materially related to the transaction to influence a decision. So the theory was that if you go into the bank and say, look, I'm putting $100,000 down on this property, but I'm really not, if the bank knew the truth, they not made the loan. But in this case, the people said they had no money, and the bank made the loan anyway.
So you never put out paperwork that said they were putting a loan down?
We never did the loan ever. I never did a loan in my life.
No, I get that, but you never said that you took in a payment for anything that you didn't or something. Is that what they're saying?
No, because
they never even treated you like a realtor. You're saying
they thought I owned a mortgage company.
That they only treated you like a mortgage company.
The nation's largest. It's like saying, "Man, the Browns suck. Let's fire the head coach of the Guardians."
Yeah,
you're blaming a realtor for mortgage fraud.
Not even. I think it's worse than that. I think it's like firing the manager of Starbucks.
Okay.
I mean, it's not even a sports team. I mean, you're not even in the same ballpark. You're not a mortgage company. You're not lending money.
They did not know. These people are too stupid for as much authority as they have. Arvin Clark, who's at Ohio BCI, he told my lawyer, because he said, man, this guy's a realtor. Yeah, realtor, bank, same thing. It's not the same thing.
So then, okay, so the reason we wanted to talk today is because we wanted to talk about Dawn, too.
Okay.
So Dawn Pasela, she provided you with what? What did she provide you with that saved your ass?
Well, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be in prison right now.
Well, you might be out by now.
No, I would have lost the second trial. I would have been. I would have served the full. I would have served the full federal sentence. They wanted me to go for another 20 years. No, I would be in there. Trust me. So let me tell you the story about Dawn real quick. How our lives intersected. I refused to plead guilty. Then the government claimed they lost the computers from the companies I don't own. I still wouldn't plead guilty. Then the government had Dawn pretending to be a paralegal, wearing a wire, and pretending to help our lawyer and our defense team as a defense paralegal to record our trial preparation, which is illegal. Once you're indicted, if the government wants to speak to you, they call your lawyer and say, come down to the prosecutor's office and talk to us with the lawyer present. But the government didn't want to do that, so they went around the law and basically had Dawn conducting these interviews, like, hey, who's your witnesses? What's going on? This is akin to...
Did you know where she worked?
No, of course not. I wouldn't have... If I knew she worked for the prosecutors initially...
Where did she tell you when she came there?
She said that she was a graduate student at Cleveland State University studying criminal defense and criminal justice, and she was working with local defense attorneys in Cleveland on similar cases.
Oh, okay.
And wanted to share information with us.
Okay.
And I said, okay, great. We need your help. And she started bringing me information, helpful information, maybe not case-cracking information, but pretty good. Plus, I had no criminal history. I had no involvement. None of my family or friends knows anything about law enforcement. We're not in that arena.
But Viola is Italian, isn't it?
I'm Italian. Okay.
I mean, you can't say you don't know nothing. Come on.
Well, we were never, there's nobody in my family who went to prison. There's nobody in my family who was ever, criminally charged or anything like that. Like, we had no experience of this happening and naively think, well, it'll work out, or everything's going to be okay, or that, the truth ultimately wins out. That is not true because the government engages in win at all cost style of prosecution. They will never admit they're wrong. And once they start realizing their case sucks, they don't leave people alone. They commit misconduct. So first the computers go vamoose, then Dan Caceres and Mark Bennett concoct this ridiculous thing where Dawn is going to pretend to be a paralegal and offer to help us and share information. And so, she's very social. We were going out as friends. We didn't date or anything, but I'm thinking she's my friend, and she's giving me tidbits of how these cases work, and I didn't know anything about what was happening. So I felt like I got run over by a Mack truck. I mean, one day I'm a respected business guy with 150 employees, and the next day I stole millions of dollars from the mortgage company.
Right.
So it was just a crazy time in my life. And my friends and colleagues would have these little happy hours, like these legal defense fundraisers. Let's help Tony and let's get a case update. She's coming to these things and supposedly helping us, where she's actually recording these discussions, even with my lawyer, about what our witnesses are going to be. And she's playing it for the prosecutors. Of course, I didn't know, or I wouldn't have talked to her. So to fast forward, she becomes aware of several serious things going way wrong inside the prosecutor's office. One is the key grand jury witness in all these mortgage fraud cases, a lady named Catherine Clover, was in a sexual relationship with the prosecutor, Dan Caceres, which has been proven later by his wife. We have family members that have come forward. The Caceres ends up getting divorced from his wife, Susan. So this is all proven later. Matt Fairfield, Clover's husband, Caceres puts him in jail to keep him quiet about this affair. So Dawn is aware of this. And she's also aware that Clover is inside the prosecutor's office, going through files, taking things out that incriminate her. She was one of the buyers of these properties that were in the indictment. The second thing that's going on is these computers that they said they lost. Dawn knew that they didn't lose them. They destroyed computers that were seized in televised raids that essentially proved that I was innocent. For two reasons. One, I didn't get any money. Let me tell you something. Jurors would understand that. You go to trial and the government says you stole $46 million and you have an accountant on the witness stand saying, hey, I went through all these computers and ledgers and Tony didn't get a cent. That is a simple, crisp defense.
Now, my question.
But we couldn't do it because they lost the computers.
But all these computers, none of them are from your real estate firm, right?
No.
They're from other
the companies I don't own.
Okay. All right.
But I needed those computers for a defense for two reasons. One, Dawn later gave us the evidence that proved what I said before, which is people weren't making a down payment or the banks allowed these loans.
Right.
If the bank allows the loans, it's not fraudulent. And the best way to defend yourself in a case about documents and what happened is the actual documents, not what some informant is testifying about years later, because they'll say whatever the prosecutor wants them to say. If you have the actual contemporaneous documents, look, it says you have no money, or look, the bank waived the income or said they didn't care about the income. How was there fraud if they didn't care about what it was? So the thing is with Dawn, she starts wearing this wire and she's upset about it because she starts meeting my family and friends and knows that, I'm not guilty and all these people are helping me and saying they want to testify, and she just knows that this is ridiculous, this case.
Was any of that evidence used against you? Was anything that you said during the time you were with Dawn used against you in court?
No, because I'm innocent, so I never admitted any guilt, but the government is supposed to turn over voice recordings with the defendant's voice on it before trial. Federal and state Rule 16, they didn't do it. But the key thing is the government started finding out who my witnesses were going to be. So like one guy named Brian Stark, he said, Tony, I'll testify for you. This is absolutely ridiculous. I know you're a realtor. The FBI went and threatened Brian Stark and said, if you testify for Tony, we're raiding your company, indicting your wife. So because
they actually said that to him?
Yes.
Holy shit. Wow.
I've got witnesses that say they were ordered to commit perjury in federal court, or they were going to indict their wife and put their kids in foster care. I've got a statement from a guy named Nick Miles, government witness, who said, this is ridiculous. Tony, I'm sorry. I'm like, dude, it's not your fault. These people are... So Dawn is seeing all this misconduct. So instead of just dismissing the case and saying, forget it, they could never do it. So they kept doing... So Dawn is shot. Dawn is a brilliant, gorgeous, brilliant young lady who's idealistic about justice. And she's like, what are we doing here? And the other thing about Dawn, she was so intelligent that she actually knew what these mortgage documents meant. So she would question things. She was just a naturally intellectually curious person. For folks tell a story, we told her to go to bed at 8 o'clock when she was younger. And why 8 o'clock? Why? Just tell me why. So she would watch the prosecutors on TV, and then she'd go back to the office and say, wait a minute, let's go look that up. And then she'd say, wait a minute, that's not true. And then she was in meetings with the prosecutors and the lender. So right before my first trial, the bank representative comes in 3 weeks before the trial. Was the first time the government ever talked to this lender. Now, they're the victim in the crime. So again, the government's alleging a crime, but the victim's not saying that. And he comes in and he's like, listen, this is crazy. I don't want to testify against these people. And then they threatened him. They said, you can't say that. So they concocted this story where he's going to claim he never really saw the Tony files or the deals that our real estate company was involved with, or that we had some involvement with. He's going to say he didn't know anything about that, but they really would prefer if people would make a down payment. So they sort of created the testimony, because you got to have a victim testify at a criminal trial. There has to be some kind of a victim. So Dawn is apoplectic. And so she confronts Bennett and Caceres and says, why are you guys putting this dude on trial when the supposed victim just told you that they signed off on these loans and there's no crime? And they yelled at her, and she had a huge fight with them. And then she left in tears and decided to start taking evidence out of the prosecutor's office. So what happened was, my first trial, I was convicted, but I was not sentenced to prison yet, because we didn't have the computers. We didn't have these lender forms that showed that they signed off on it. And these government witnesses manufactured a story. They were told to lie, including this Catherine Clover. Once I had the documents from Dawn, so after I'm convicted, but I'm not sentenced yet, I'm still walking around awaiting sentencing, Dawn comes forward and says, Tony, you're innocent. And then she tells me about wearing a wire, and she's got all these documents and all this evidence.
But what's in the documents? Is it the documents that are missing from the computer, basically?
Yes. Some of the missing computer stuff I have that shows that these loans were submitted to lenders with the buyer making no down payment and have no income.
Okay. There was enough. Maybe not all of them, but there's enough.
If you have a piece of paper saying the bank doesn't want income or assets, it defeats the case that I committed.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter who owns what mortgage company. If there's no fraud, there's no fraud.
Right.
These documents extinguished a theory that the government was putting out there, which is the bank is an innocent victim duped by these realtors and loan officers working together in this conspiracy. And the other thing was, the banks claimed that they did not allow no money down cash back loans. You can't buy a rental house and put no money down and get cash back. But she had what was called the bank underwriting guideline book that they didn't give us, and it said the Argent Advantage program, up to $50,000 cash back. So when the guy's testifying and you could shove that document in his face and say, here, what's that? The guy almost had a heart attack on the witness stand. Oh, like, what are you, passing kidney stones? What does that mean? And he had to admit, well, we don't do that loan program that much. That's not what I asked. You said you don't do it at all, and it's fraud if somebody got cash back. But here it says you authorized it. You have it. It's like going to Starbucks. If they offer the caramel macchiato, then I didn't trick them into making it if it's on the menu, basically, was our defense.
Right.
So, but you can't do that in the first trial because I didn't have any of those documents. So Dawn comes forward, gives me these documents, and says, look, I will testify for you if you do not use a lawyer. I'm like, what? How am I going to go to trial without a lawyer? She said, if you use a lawyer, they will call the prosecutor. The prosecutor will be informed that you have these documents. I will be indicted for stealing documents. They will be sealed by Judge Nugent. Don Nugent loves prosecutors. He will seal this. You'll never see the light of day. The only way for you to do this is to go to a second trial from prison, because I'm going to be sentenced to jail. And then your second trial is going to schedule to start a month later.
So you're not even in prison at this point?
No, not when she's helping me.
Okay.
We're meeting and we're getting ready. The other thing she told me, which is brilliant, and I never thought of this, she said, Tony, if you're guilty and you run around the courtroom claiming that there's misconduct, nobody cares. Go shoot a bunch of kindergartners and then argue that the officer screwed up the search warrant or whatever. Nobody cares because you're guilty. Right. So she said, the second trial, you have to prove that you're innocent. You have to prove that forget reasonable doubt. We'll tell that we're proving innocence, okay? Because we can with these documents. But you save me for your last witness, I will come in and talk about the wrongdoing inside the prosecutor's office because I worked for Mark Bennett. I worked for Dan Caceres. I was the office manager of the task force. I did record you. I did give money to your legal fees so the government could track your investigation and who's potentially a witness. It's all illegal. So she said the second trial, there's like a Berlin Wall between, for an old school saying, between innocence, which you're going to do, and you're saving me for the end, and I'm going to say all of these cases should be reopened, particularly where Catherine Clover, who Caceres was having an affair with and giving money to illegally, that should be reopened. So she testified in all these grand jury proceedings.
Like government money, not his own money?
Right. So let me explain what's called a giglio violation. Okay, so the government's allowed to give witnesses or informants money. Government money, okay? They're allowed to do it, but it has to be disclosed. Because in court, a juror or the jury can consider some, all, or none of any particular witness's testimony.
Sure, absolutely.
Right? So if you say, well, that person got paid, let's set that aside. What else do we got to convict this person, right? The jury could believe some, all, or none. It's unassailable. It's their choice. But when the government gives money, like they did to Clover, when they give money to an informant who testifies as a government witness and they don't tell the jury, that's like a Brady-type violation. It's called a giglio violation because the defense lawyers could impeach the witness and say, well, look, you're just being paid to say this. How much did you get? And what did they pay? But they lied and said, no, we didn't give her any money.
The Lorraine Head Start case he was paid as a witness. I forget his name now. The one that actually claimed that no, it wasn't the Head Start. It was the Ohio 4.
Oh, right.
He was paid like $2,000 or something like that from that. So they had to disclose that, and if they didn't, that's a major problem. Huh?
It's a major problem because the jurors would evaluate or may evaluate a witness separately.
Well, sure. I mean, if I'm a juror, if I'm sitting on a witness stand and I know that this witness was paid to come up here and say this, I'm going to take that with a grain of salt.
Right. If I come in, I'm not getting paid, and I have no criminal history, and I'm just saying, hey, look, I was driving by and I saw this guy coming out of the gas station. I mean, that is credible witness testimony.
Sure, better.
The other problem with Clover was she was inside the prosecutor's office, sitting in meetings with government witnesses, helping Dan Caceres with these cases. So she's not really an independent fact witness. A witness is supposed to come in as a fact witness and tell what they know from personal knowledge, not an expert or a manufactured, parroting what the prosecutor wants to say. So this is a blatant conflict of interest. And by the way, Caceres has done this over and over again with Kelly Connors and the Tammy Keaton case. I mean, he continuously uses his authority as a prosecutor to have sexual relationships with government witnesses or victims of crime, supposedly, and
really?
it's
This
undisclosed.
isn't the first one?
No, he's got a whole history of this.
Jesus.
So anyway, Dawn is going to testify about government misconduct that she personally saw. And she said, Tony, you got to prove that you're innocent. You're not going to be able to prove misconduct because you didn't see it. You didn't see the computers go vamoose. You weren't in the office when Clover was there. You weren't in the meeting when the bank said they allow the loans. I have personal knowledge. And she was right. She was brilliant in the way she set up the second trial. And she helped me prepare, and we made exhibit stickers and witness questions. And she was the last witness. So I know she was planning on coming into the trial because she had given me questions she wanted me to ask her. We even practiced a little bit.
Well, and we haven't hit the jack. We haven't said what happened.
Well, what happened was she called the court, and Judge Daniel Gall was the judge, and she asked to speak to me. She told me she was being threatened. She was told by Arvin Klaar and Dan Caceres to leave Ohio until my case was over, if she knew it was good for her. She was so afraid that she moved into her folks' house, her parents' house. She parked her car in their garage and closed the door so they wouldn't know where she was. These characters went to Ed and Karen Pasela's house, threatening them. And I said, well, Dawn, I'm gonna take you off the witness list. I said, God forbid something happens to you. I'm going to have to shoot myself. I said, forget it coming to court. And she said, Tony, they already know I'm helping you. There's no way. I have to come to court. I'll be a whistleblower. I have to expose this. And she said, I do want you to win your case, but I also want my life back. And whether you win or lose, if I don't come to court and testify, these people will hound me for the rest of my life, whether you're in jail or out of jail or what. I've got to come to court and testify. And I said, okay, whatever you think. And we just chatted about some fun times we had for a minute. And then she said, well, I got to go. And I said, okay. And so I said, I'll see you when, her thing was the next day, I think. This is either a day or two before she was supposed to come to court. I think it was 2 days before. So I do my case. She's the last witness. She's supposed to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning. She doesn't show up. The judge says, do you know what she looks like? And I said, yes, Your Honor. He says, well, go outside and see if she's out in the hallway. I said, okay. So this deputy, I'm a prisoner at this point. I'm doing this trial from prison. So the sheriff's deputy is like walking with me. You're not going to make a run for it, are you? And I said, of course not, because I think I'm winning the case. I needed a not guilty verdict, right? So she's not in the hallway. So the judge says, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I got some other matters to attend to. We're coming back at 1 o'clock. If she's not here, if she's here, she can go on at 1 o'clock. If she's not here, you guys are doing closing statements. This case has gone on for 2 months. The jury, you're clogging up my courtroom with this mortgage nonsense, with your document wars. I got a huge docket of rape cases and divorces and everything else under the sun. I gotta get this case done. So we said, okay, 1 o'clock comes and goes. She doesn't appear. So we give the closing statements. And then the next morning, they asked me if I wanted to be in it's called a bullpen outside of the courtroom. And I said, yes, if there was a jury question. So I came up for court. They let me dress into my street clothes or whatever for my jail uniform. And I'm sitting in this bullpen jail cell. And they call me into court and say, and I put my hands out like this, because when you go to court, you get handcuffed to walk in. And the officer was like, white as a ghost. And he said, F the cuffs. I said, did I win? He's like, shut up. So I walk into the courtroom and there's no jury, because I thought it would be a jury verdict or a jury question. So I'm like, what are they bringing me to? I didn't understand. Like, why are they bringing me to court? And the court reporter looked like she was in tears. And Judge Gall, his face was like white. I was like, what is going on? And I was like, and then the judge put on the record that he just found out that Dawn Pasela was found dead in her apartment the night before.
Oh, wow.
And I just couldn't believe it. I absolutely was. I still can't believe it.
So, wow. So you were going in for your sentence. So then
this is the second trial, right? So,
yeah, it's a second trial.
So then they put me back in the bullpen, the jail cell thing. And then they keep opening the door and asking me if I'm going to hurt myself or whatever. I'm Catholic. I said, yeah, if the priest, his Father Neil Walters, was the Catholic chaplain, I said, I would love to ask, or pray, well, we'll try to find him. And they kept opening the door. Are you okay? Or they took my tie. They took, like, are you going to hang yourself? They took my shoelaces. Like, I'm going to hang myself with my shoelaces. And then they opened, and I said, can you guys just leave me alone? And he's like, no, let's go. It's the verdict. So then they take me back, and there's 59 of these counts. Count one, how do you. So the jurors started rattling off, not guilty. Count two, not guilty. Count three, not guilty. And I was like, my head was spinning because Dawn passed away. I was absolutely in a state of shock. In jail, when somebody dies, it's like so weird because everything's the same. You get the same bologna sandwich on Christmas and Easter and your birthday. And so it's so, like if somebody dies in the real world, you have a service or a funeral, or you can call your friends, or you can be with somebody. So it's just like the craziest thing. And then they're starting to, so I remember when they were like at 15, not guilty, I just said, I wonder if this could continue. And then I just totally didn't even know what was going on. And I was emotional. And I think the jurors must have thought I was completely crazy. Not guilty. They just kept saying, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. I remember when it got to 40, I'm like, oh my God, this is a miracle. Not guilty, not guilty. And then at some point I just fell to my knees and said, thank God. And I was just in tears. And I think the jurors thought I would be happy that I was not guilty, but I was like an emotional wreck. And they were looking at me like,
well, yeah, you're having like almost the worst and best day of your life.
I didn't even care that I wasn't guilty.
I didn't
even care because I kept thinking I would rather be guilty and have Dawn alive is what I was going through my head. Like I could just read books in jail and learn, read about the Roman Empire or something. And I was all these different thoughts are going through my head that I'm thinking I'm responsible for this young lady's death, because if I didn't put her on the witness list, even if she was threatened, by this point, I should have known these prosecutors don't play fair. They're not nice guys. This is win at all costs. So I should have, the naivete that I thought, well, she's just going to bebop into court and then have these people all arrested. It was like kind of like, what's the matter with me? And all this is going through my head at the same time, and it's not guilty. And I'm thinking my folks will be happy. And it was the craziest thing ever. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. Why? Because JP Morgan Chase only makes loans that meet their lending guidelines. I mean, this is absolutely insane. The government power and 58 law enforcement officials investigating my real estate company that's not actually a mortgage company, and all this illegal. You know, the irony here is there was no criminal activity when we were showing people houses.
Right.
The only criminal activity is in this investigation to put me in jail. That's when the government started giving Clover money, and Caceres had his affair with Catherine Clover, and we destroyed computers and hid evidence, and it intruded into the Sixth Amendment right to counsel for me to have a lawyer present if the government wants to talk to me, not have the hot office manager wearing a wire and pretending to be a paralegal. I mean, the stuff that's gone on in this case is beyond belief. It is a prosecutorial crime spree, even so much as that in 2019 and 2020, the FBI and the Justice Department both said in writing that they lied about evidence in the case, and that litigation is still ongoing. What more do I need to do to get these people to leave me alone? It is unbelievable. How does the FBI lie? They said that they were unaware of their own records in the record system. That's what the FBI is saying.
It's ignorance, and is that an excuse?
Let's say it's a goof. It's a mistake. Let's stop prosecuting people till we get the records figured out correctly. We are putting hundreds and thousands of people in jail every day, every week, and the government says they don't know about their own evidence.
I mean, if I'm ignorant, I go to jail. It don't matter.
Correct.
Ignorance isn't an excuse, I don't think.
In law enforcement, failure leads to more money. We need better training. We need more staff. We need more officers. We need more guns. So this is the kind of nonsense. And I was in a jail cell, and I'm hauled into some video conference or something with the federal judge in Pennsylvania, because that's where the litigation was ongoing, because I was in prison there. And they're telling me they're lying about evidence. And I said, Your Honor, these people should be held in contempt. Let's put the FBI agent in jail. And they're telling me to calm down. Calm down. After this call, you guys go decide where you're going to lunch. I'm going back to a jail cell.
Yeah.
You know, so anyway, the government's been ordered. This is great. Since 2016, the federal government has been under orders to produce the voice recordings that Dawn Pasela made that they say exist, and they have not yet been produced almost 10 years later. Could you imagine if you were ordered by a federal court? Let's say you had some type of evidence or recording that the government wanted. Could you imagine 10 years of delays? When they were coming after me, there was enthusiasm and press conferences and raids, pontoon boats in the Cuyahoga River. You don't want these realtors swimming to Canada, potentially. We need pontoon boats, helicopters, SWAT teams, guns.
I don't know if you would swim. I think they were worried you'd get on a boat. I mean, if you got $46 million, you probably
I would not be in Cleveland in January if I had $46 million. I would come in the summer or in for a football game. But anyway, so the enthusiasm when they're putting people away is, you know, great. High-fiving, you know, when I went to jail, they're high-fiving each other. But now it takes 10 years for them to follow court orders. It's unbelievable. And the judges don't care when the government violates court orders. It's cool because they love prosecutors, because the judge is a former prosecutor. And so what you have is this ridiculous situation where even though we've proven government misconduct by the government's own records or Dan Caceres' own emails, I mean, these two prosecutors are great because they put so much of their own criminal activity in writing. It's beyond belief, their emails that we've been digging and keep getting either through Dawn, who cleaned out their office, or through a tenacious investigation by our private investigator, Bob Frederick, or Kim Corral, who's really good at digging up stuff too. So the stuff that's in writing is just dynamite. So there's nothing I'm saying that's better than what they say. Like we didn't know about our own records, or like Dan Caceres saying, hey, these witnesses are committing perjury, but we don't want Tony to find out. How do we keep Tony from finding out? The government is not allowed to knowingly use perjured testimony to imprison American citizens.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's obvious. I mean, that's
they do it.
Sense. That's common sense. It shouldn't be the case. So now when so you're in jail, you're in the courtroom, they're saying not guilty. You know now at this point that Dawn is. Do you suspect that that's something crazy, or
yes,
you do?
It just doesn't make sense because she.
Did they give you a cause of death at the time?
Dan Caceres seemed surprisingly cavalier about the cause of death, and we found out later he destroyed his computer the same day that she died. There's a lot of suspicious things about her death, but I didn't know all of them at the time because I was a prisoner.
Sure, obviously.
And my investigator, Bob Frederick, and my friends would do records requests, and we sort of pieced it together over time. But it sounded very fishy because Dawn specifically said she was coming to court not just to help me, but for herself, to move forward with her life. She wanted to be done with this rubbish. And she also wanted to help other people who were, in her opinion, unfairly prosecuted. One of the reasons this Justice for Dawn crusade that we're on now is to honor her memories, that Dawn was not just like, oh, Tony, your case is screwed up. She's like, they're all screwed up. And so she felt like over 1,000 people were having their lives ruined. They went to prison. They lost their real estate licenses. They lost their businesses. They lost families over it. We've had overdose and addiction challenges because of this crap. You know, they ruined our company. They ruined other people's businesses.
Yeah, I mean, you ruined. I mean, yeah. Here you are. You're starting there. You were. How long had you had your company?
About 15 years at that point. We were just getting ahead of steam. Yeah,
good.
We're just getting there. We worked
Life's
our ass
good.
off.
You had a top of the line Topaz.
I had the GS version. Yeah, that stands for Grand Sport. It's really nice, and I had a racing stripe.
I didn't even know they made Topazes in like 2008.
No, I had it from that long ago. That's how old it was. It was like a 94 or something.
Yeah. So I mean, all this is so. At this point, it's your belief. Do you think that somebody murdered her? You believe that?
Let's talk about, yes. Well, her death was not a natural death.
And you don't think it was suicide either?
No, absolutely not. Someone was there. Now, maybe there was not an intention, hey, let's go and murder this lady, because let me tell you, first of all, her computer is missing. So somebody was there to find out what evidence did you give Tony. There's a couple of anonymous leads we've gotten that said that Dawn made other copies of the evidence she gave me. And the head of the task force, a guy named Don Cleland, came forward and gave a statement that Dawn possessed all the evidence in all these cases on hard drives. So the working theory is that the government was going crazy during my second trial. They didn't know I had all this stuff. They would have never put me on trial. So they're worried. Okay, first they thought we're going to smash Tony and put him in jail for another 20 years. Then they thought we might lose Tony's case. Then they thought we might lose all these cases. Then they thought we might go to jail ourselves. So, I mean, like, they were having an increasing conniption fit throughout this second trial. So it makes sense that they wanted to know. Someone goes to Dawn and say, what did you give Tony? Or where are these hard drives? Or what other evidence is out there? Or did you make, 400 copies and mail it to every reporter in Ohio? I mean, something they were concerned about. So what happened was, sorry about that. What happened was, here, let me I think that has to be. See, I'm Italian. I talk with my hands, so I hit it. Sorry about that. I can't talk without using my hands.
But you don't know nothing about criminal justice.
Certainly
system.
Not. Well, I was happy to talk to Dawn initially because she was so knowledgeable about it, and it wasn't. I didn't have a friend who could, just tell me about. I mean, I just didn't know what was happening. I felt like I was being initially when I met her, and she knew everything. So it was good to have and she was fun, very fun to go out with. She was a very interesting person. She was very kind. We were at this little bar called AJ Rocco's in downtown Cleveland, and one of my friends was sort of by himself, and she goes over. There's about 5 or 6 of us talking. She goes over and pulls him into the conversation. Oh, come talk to us. What are you doing over there by yourself? Like that's Dawn. Like she's just a really kind person, a very interesting person to talk to. Very smart. So anyway. Back to her death. I mean, the timing of it seemed very suspicious, right?
Very, very, very.
Because she's saying she's going to come to court, and she practiced with me the question she's going to answer. Okay, and Dawn.
But how did she end up back at her place when she was at her parents'? Wasn't she staying at her parents'?
She was staying at her parents', and she felt good enough to go back to her place and hope that everything would be okay. She wanted to, she'd lived. I think she was at her parents' for about 5 weeks.
Wow.
So at some point, you're like, yeah, I got to go back to my apartment,
Yeah, 2 weeks I'd have to, I'm like, yeah, I got to go.
Right. And they probably were like, it's time to go. So I think she was there for, several weeks, and I think it was enough. And she wanted her own life, and she was looking for employment. She was going to work for a private investigative firm. So she had job interviews and stuff. And I think was hoping to testify and move forward with her life.
Was there like some phones missing or something too?
Yeah. So let's talk about the Parma police. First of all, Dawn lived in an apartment complex called Midtown Towers. It's a huge apartment complex. There's literally a camera outside her door, okay, of her apartment. The Parma police never collected any surveillance footage. There were 3 cell phones left in the apartment, and one may have been dropped during a struggle. A guy named Marty Maurer originally admitted to one investigator that he was there and he left and Dawn was fine. Then he lied to another investigator saying he was never there. There was a phone that was left with an outbound phone call at about 5 a.m, which is after she would have passed away, because according to the police and medical examiner rigor mortis had set in, and she'd been dead for 18 or 20 hours when she was found the next day. So the Parma police never collected any of the 3 cell phones, never collected any evidence whatsoever, never collected the surveillance video, and never canvassed the apartment, which is standard police procedure, meaning knock on the doors. Hey, did you guys hear anything? Yeah. Anything weird?
Look at the cameras.
Look at the cameras. Right. There was a window opened. It was the second floor. Dawn lived on the second floor. You could jump from that window out. It was about a 7 foot. I mean, it's not right out the window, but you could. I'm not saying it happened. Of course, we got the cameras. We would know, but it was weird.
I've done it a million times. When I was a kid at Pearl Village Apartments right here.
Yeah.
When I was like 14, I used to jump out the second story window. I'd get in trouble all the time. My mom would get a phone call from the manager. I got to stop doing it.
Right.
Never hurt me. Although my knees don't feel that good now. But
no, but I'm not as, young as I used to be, but I could jump out the window because we were in the apartment later. A guy let us come into that apartment and take video and so forth. So the window's wide open and the heat is cranked up. So that's suspicious, right? The window's
Very
wide open,
suspicious.
heat is cranked up. Dawn is cooking soup on the stove. She supposedly has this 0.60 alcohol content, which is astronomical. However, she's fully clothed. There's no vomit. There's no urine anywhere. So it just seems like an excessively high alcohol content as well.
Was she out drinking anywhere that night?
No, there was an empty vodka bottle in her trash, but there's no cups outstanding, and there's 2 cups of coffee on the table. So it does appear somebody was there, and her computer was missing. And then if you zoom out, we have other irregularities I can explain if you want me to go into more.
I kind of do. I mean, I'm kind of curious about this. That's kind of, I mean, if this is true, I mean, I hate to say it because I know your 10 years of life and losing your topaz and everything really fucked your life up, but she lost her life. I mean, that's more injustice than ever. You know what I mean?
Yes. And, when I was in prison, I remember I called my folks. My father passed away when I was in prison. The government said it would be a threat to the public safety if I went to my father's funeral, so I couldn't go. But before he passed...
You did? You couldn't go to your father's funeral?
No, they said it was a threat to the public.
Jesus Christ.
But before that happened, I was talking to my mother from the prison phone, and she said, Tony, as hard as this is on us, we will see you again one day. But Dawn, her folks will never see her again.
Ever.
Well, in heaven, hopefully, if you believe in that. But, and it is very true. The biggest victim of all of this is Dawn.
Yeah.
And she's not here to speak for herself. Not that we're as good as she would be because she was brilliant and she knew what to do, but we are trying our best. That's why there is no way this justice for Dawn cause is going to crap out or peter out, or we're just going to forget about Dawn and, move on. Okay. If it was just my case and I went to jail and I'm not a realtor anymore, I don't think anyone's going to riot in the streets.
Well,
okay?
I mean, it is a big deal. We might come and show support.
Maybe. But the issue of Dawn's death, and in the process of exposing prosecutorial misconduct that led to over 1,000 wrongful convictions, because 1,000 people's lives were ruined from what I can tell. So Mark Bennett and Dan Caceres could go on Channel 19. I think that's why all this happened. And the fact that law enforcement...
Well, I mean, you also get promotions. You get to be assistant to the attorney general and everything else.
Right.
I mean, it's not just the news cameras. The news cameras get you the promotions that put some more money in your pocket and make you Mr. Big Shot.
Yes. But the thing is, Dawn, someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's friend, and to allow this is it's just a bridge too far. When people say government corruption, I think they think of, some councilman getting an envelope with $500 in cash to vote for the, zoning change. This corruption is literally a matter of life and death. And Dawn was just trying to do the right thing. It wasn't like I was paying her. She was just trying to do the right thing. Dawn was such an idealist about justice. And she said, I don't hate the police. I don't hate law enforcement. I just think court should be fair. If we're supposed to turn over records, we don't go destroy them in the back room. We just give them. And so the problem is an honest prosecutor would have done that, but they wouldn't have won the case.
Right.
So Mark Bennett and Dan Caceres win their cases. Well, of course, Bennett was fired and disbarred, but they won their cases because they engaged in this type of shenanigans, threats, intimidation, altering documents, using perjured testimony. It's absolutely beyond belief what these guys were doing in a case where the victim said they didn't lose any money.
Well, I mean, yeah, that the whole thing happened with Trump either. But at some point they started prosecuting you as a realtor, not as a bank, correct? Or
Well, I think I kept going on television saying they're too stupid and don't know what companies I own, that they sort of veered into this general, there's a conspiracy here, there's a bunch of players, Tony's one of the key players.
I got you.
And so they were able to get Catherine Clover to sort of alter her testimony, okay, and sort of, you're going to kind of soft pedal certain things and talk about other things. But Clover didn't want to do it, and she kind of started feeling bad. And during the first trial, she had actually some type of a meltdown and had to go to some type of psychiatrist and said, I just was on the witness stand and I lied, and this guy's probably going to go to prison. And she asked the prosecutors to put her back on the stand so she could say the truth, and they wouldn't let her do it. It's all in writing.
That's actually in writing?
Yes. Mark Bennett said it was in the interest of justice to use perjured testimony. Otherwise, they could lose the case. In other words, what the prosecutor put in writing, these idiots, if we don't have false testimony, Tony's not going to jail, and we want Tony to go to jail, so we're using false testimony.
Are you attempting to get charges brought on them now?
They should be indicted. We have enough evidence to indict Mark Bennett and Dan Caceres. They could go to jail. There's dozens of felonies. The problem is all this law and order, pro-law enforcement crap makes it very difficult to have accountability unless there's public pressure. You look at any Epstein, you look at any situation, it takes public pressure to force the government to do the right thing. Nobody in the government, as far as I can see, other than Dawn, is willing to do the right thing in this case and say there should be a proper investigation into what happened to Dawn and throw these stupid mortgage fraud cases out. Nobody in the government has ever, they fight us tooth and nail all day. I had Yale Law School take part of my case in working with Kim Corral. We had 30 law students, 2 law professors, and 2 lawyers going through all these documents in my case. What person could afford this? I mean, it's a miracle they're helping me, and we just won a big ruling in the Court of Appeals.
Right.
But it's ridiculous to have to litigate this. When they said they lied about evidence, the case should have been thrown out. When I proved my innocence at a second trial in 2012, the case should have been thrown out. But Don Nugent, the federal judge, is a prosecutor. The judge is a prosecutor. The prosecutor is a prosecutor. The defense attorney loves the prosecutor. And everybody makes money on this evil system. The court reporter makes money. The jail guard makes money. This is absolutely sickening. That the great threat to the public, it's not China, it's not Russia. We're supposed to hate these people. The threat is our own government, abuses of power by people in authority that are destroying people's lives.
And these prisons are private, right?
A lot of these prisons are private. I was at one in Youngstown. It's called Core Civic now. It was called CCA. Drones flying in with drugs. I mean, the people overdosing and dying in jail from drugs brought in by the cops. I mean, it is a sewer. The cops in jail should wear body cameras. If the public saw what actually went on in these prisons, cops extracting sexual favors from people, cops telling visitors in the visiting room, oh my God, there's something wrong with your boyfriend, husband, friend, whatever. I got to meet you somewhere, meet him at a coffee house and try to have sex with them. That's a guy named James Wisterbarth. That's a documented case at one of the prisons I was at. It is unbelievable what is going on in these prisons. It is sickening. So if you think putting people in jail is going to help and then they get back out, make them a bigger criminal.
If they're guilty of molesting kids or murder, fuck them. I don't care. But I mean, if they're in there for like, they don't like the way they ran their business, yeah, then I care. Then that's a big deal.
If you want to put murderers and child molesters and rapists in jail, the prison population would be 2% of what it is now.
I don't.
I was in jail with a guy that shot a duck on some military base. He was drinking and he had a permit. We walked over to the military base. He had no idea. I was in jail with a guy who had a UPS store. He filed for bankruptcy. He couldn't pay his payroll taxes. He tried to work a deal, and they indicted him for tax fraud, even though he just had a business failure. I was in jail with people that had addictions, that made mistakes, and did stupid. I was in jail with a doctor who his administrative lady stole his script and forged his name, and her boyfriend got OxyContin pills, and they put the doctor in jail for not locking up his script. I mean, the government.
I think I remember that case actually.
It is ridiculous. The government. I was in jail with people that ratted on themselves. I was in jail with a stockbroker who got into an addiction problem, took money out of the stock account for like his client's money, put it back, reported himself. The government wouldn't have known, and they put him in prison. So, I mean, the Conrad Black is a member.
But everybody in prison's innocent, according to them. So there is that.
Well, that's actually not true. There's people that said they have to make amends. I did something wrong. There's people that were humbled in prison. There was people. One guy was a sales guy, and he closed some deal, and he got really wasted at some restaurant, and he went home and he ran over some people and killed them. He didn't mean to, but he killed them. He was racked with guilt. Not everybody goes around in prison saying they're innocent.
But there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of people that say they're innocent that aren't. There's a lot of people that brag of, their exploits, and it turned out they weren't. The people that claim that they hate rats and informants are usually rats and informants. Oh, I'm going to kill those rats. It's a whole world unto itself. But I'm talking about the government. Taxpayers are funding nonsense that goes on in there. Drones bringing in drugs. There was at one place, at McKean in Pennsylvania, there was so much contraband, the inmates would walk around with a sheet. Would you want Burger King? You want McDonald's? There was girls coming into the prison. There was guys going out of the prison to bars to watch football games and coming back, breaking back into the prison. It's called the inmate taxi service at these prison camps. There's no fence. So the guys would leave. If you could be at a camp with no fence, you shouldn't be in jail. You should be working somewhere. So there's...
Well, but like when you compare the United States to anywhere in the world, we have the most incarceration, right?
By far.
Yeah, by a ton, right?
By far.
I can't remember the numbers, but I know
it's not even close.
Pretty astronomical.
If you hire more prosecutors, you will get more prosecutions. Not necessarily there's more crime, but you will hire more. Like Jeff Sessions, Trump's first attorney general, said we're going to prosecute our way out of the opioid crisis. We're going to prosecute doctors. We're going to prosecute people. But the thing is, if somebody has an addiction, it's best to treat the addiction rather than just put them in jail where they can get drugs in jail and then take them out of jail. Even with a child molester, in all honesty, a lot of these dudes are going to get out one day. So think about that. What in the hell are we doing? You put them in there, they get the crap beaten out of them, and they get out, and what's going to happen? So our system is not designed to... It's not focused on what it should be, which is public safety.
Right.
Law enforcement should be focused on keeping the public safe from people who will do harm. If I stole money from JP Morgan Chase, let's say I did, the first thing that should happen is that bank should file a civil lawsuit to get the money back. And if the government wants to prosecute me or not, whatever. But they never did that. So this is a investigation in search of a crime, and there's a lot of that in this country to keep these idiot prosecutors busy.
Just busy. Well, I was shocked. So J.D. Tomlinson, he's the one who is in trouble now with they're trying to say that he did something wrong with the Nancy Smith case and all that. Yeah, we had him in here and we were talking, and he was telling me how many people were in his office. And it was like 97. I'm like, in Lorain County, you need 97 people in an office for prosecution. 97? That's insane to me.
Right.
I thought it would be like 8.
Right.
And I thought that was a lot.
You got to remember something. This mortgage fraud task force, these idiots were climbing all over themselves to get into this mortgage fraud task force. Sit in the office all day, drink coffee, and interview realtors. Dawn told me in my real estate office, I had a number of young ladies that worked for me that were very smart, and a lot were very physically attractive. They would haul them down there to check them out. Oh, this person's got a nice ass. This person has big tits. I mean, that's literally what was going on. And can you imagine? I mean, a young lady in our office, they would be neurotic, like, oh, God, the prosecutors want me to go down. And I said, well, just tell the truth, and scare the crap out of them. And it was just for that kind of stuff. A lot of people in law enforcement, I'm not saying they're all, but a lot of them are cowards. Tough guy. They want to do tough. Talk tough. Okay? Trust me, there was a lot of them want to sit around the office all day interviewing realtors and loan officers and asking people about houses they bought and all this is absolutely ridiculous. I'll give you a story. At the when I was released from prison, I initially was released on an ankle monitor after they said they lied about evidence.
Okay.
And these attorneys said, look, we can get you out of there, but you got to go on an ankle monitor. Is that okay? I'm like, no, I want to stay here. Of course it's okay. What are you talking about? Let me get out of here. And they would drug test me. I don't do drugs. I've never done drugs in my life. And they kept drug testing me. And I asked the guy, I'd go to work. I'd have this like minimum wage job. And they'd call me, you have to come to the Oriana house on East 55th in Cleveland. I have to walk like 6 miles to get a drug test.
You didn't have your topaz no more?
No topaz and an ankle monitor, so I can't have a driver's license. So, no, yeah, those are the days, right? I'll get one. if this goes well, you get a good one for like $1,000. You ever check Facebook Marketplace? But
I think I have a friend here. It might be a Tempo. I could be wrong.
Tempo is not as nice. Get the GS. Just get the GS model.
Oh no, I'm not doing that.
No, all right.
I can't sit in a car.
Anyway, they would. So I asked this guy at the Orient. I said, dude, why do you guys keep drug testing me? I don't do drugs. He's like, I know you don't do drugs. I'm like, why are you drug testing me? He's because like when we call, you come right down. The people that do drugs, they're in some girl's apartment, or I gotta go find them. It's real easy to do. I have to do 30 of these a week. So if I put you on the list, you come right down. It's one less. So I'm like, they're drug testing me knowing that this is a waste of like a couple $1,000s of taxpayer money. It's not free to do these 68 panel tests or whatever. So the thing in law enforcement is there's zero accountability. There's the destruction of people's lives for fun. The megalomaniac prosecutors are more successful because they win more cases. So like Dave Yost will give a high profile case to a guy named, like Caceres because he wins the case, because he destroys the evidence and plays all these games where an honest person doesn't do it. So the lack of accountability is why a lot of people think the solution is pretty simple, which is to remove this thing called qualified immunity. Okay, a lot of these people are immune when they do something illegal. Oh, you can't sue them. They have quote unquote qualified immunity. That's got to go away. So
what do you mean?
You should look into that. Law enforcement. So the theory is, well, they can't do their jobs if they're going to be sued all day. So if a prosecutor loses a case, you can't sue the guy. You were acquitted, so you're good. There's nothing wrong. So
and it doesn't matter if he broke the law to.
It's supposed to matter, but it doesn't. They have immunity.
Oh wow!
This immunity creates a feeling of invincibility. You're not immune. Right? If something goes wrong at your bar, or when someone's eating something, or something's bad, okay, someone gets sick, they're going to come after you. But these people have immunity. Look it up. It's why there's such law enforcement misconduct, because the bad apples don't get weeded out. There's bad of everything. There's bad plumbers. There's bad school teachers. There's bad everything. Right?
Yeah, I would argue there's more good cops and bad cops.
There may be.
But we know about the bad ones.
Right, but the system doesn't weed out the bad ones, so it destroys the reputation of law enforcement on a wider scale. I'm not saying every single person is bad. I don't believe that.
No. I know.
But the thing is, there's no mechanism to...
I'm saying it for my own, so I don't want to, I'm just putting
there's a lot of good people in law enforcement. And I'm not here to say every single person is bad. What I'm saying is there's enormous systemic problems, and it's a threat to the public if innocent people are thrown in jail intentionally. And that's what happened with this mortgage fraud task force. Nobody tricked J.P. Morgan Chase into making mortgage loans.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, and it's ridiculous. And they never, ever, ever admit they're wrong, even when they're wrong. They're so stubborn. That's one of the problems. So hopefully there's some justice for Dawn, meaning accountability for what happened to her, and that this sends shudders through law enforcement. Yeah, these two prosecutors should be arrested and imprisoned. There would be nothing better. Law enforcement would say, hey, we prosecute people for deterrent purposes.
Right.
Okay, so if we could we're trying to make history. Get Mark Bennett arrested. Get Dan Caceres arrested. And there's enough. There's obstruction of justice, the tampering with proceedings. This stuff with Dawn is illegal, to have this lady wearing a wire. The things that they did are clearly, using perjured testimony, are clearly illegal. The other thing, too, that's so important is they uncorked this ridiculous media frenzy without even knowing what businesses I owned. If they would have called me or issued a subpoena, we would have given them everything and said,
yeah, but if you had an extra $46 million, you would have jetted, too.
Nobody with $46 million would live in my little house, drive a Mercury.
Well, they might if they were trying to hide it.
There's no point of stealing. People who steal money do it because they love money and they're materialistic. Nobody steals money and puts it under the ground in the backyard. That I've never heard of a case like that, of somebody stealing money.
No, Breaking Bad's the only one that did that.
Okay.
And, and that's a movie made up. Science teacher or whatever it was.
Okay, the point of fraud is to steal money from people to ... buy a Porsche, live large, go to clubs. I did not have a wild lifestyle.
No, yeah, and you don't have to, and I don't agree with that. Fraud doesn't have to always mean that it's just to get something you want. It doesn't matter if you're living large or not. If you fraud, you fraud. But regardless, they clearly didn't have any evidence that was the case.
Right. So
that's what it sounds like to me. And they've said so. Obviously, you've been found not guilty.
I was acquitted at a second trial. They admitted lying about evidence, but my first conviction has not yet been vacated because of this 7-year legal slog that's gone on after they admitted lying about evidence, which is ridiculous.
So they haven't vacated the first one yet?
No, we're still working on that.
Oh, wow.
We just got a ruling 3 weeks ago in November of this year, 2025. We just got a ruling in the Court of Appeals about the government did not properly disclose evidence. And, it's just this lengthy process. That case has taken 4 years at the appellate level, and it went on for many years before. So it's slow as molasses in January when we're winning, when the common guys finally sticking it to the government, everything, we put the brakes on. That goes 1 mile an hour. When they're coming after you, we're leaking to the media. There's a lady on Channel 5 News in Cleveland named Michelle Jarboe. They called her before they raided my company to tell her, hey, we're raiding this guy's company. And she's calling me for comment.
Well, that's what I was sitting here. I was listening to another podcast that you did years ago. Or a couple years ago, whatever it was, with the text this morning, and that was the first thing he noticed. He goes, "Wait, the news was there when he got raided."
Yeah.
So they knew before he did.
Yeah. So it's a staged, show. It's for a show. Who needs evidence?
Shock and awe.
Right. Exactly. And
it wasn't just you. They went after everybody that day, right? Like all the different mortgage companies and everything. They went after.
Raided lots of places that day. But they featured me as the key mastermind of the whole thing. And
you don't think any of them were guilty? Nobody did anything wrong? Or you're not even saying that? Or you are saying that?
In my case, I can only speak for my case because trust me, I've gone through all the records. There was no mortgage fraud.
No, I understand that.
In my case, the people said they had no money, or accountants made their financial statements based on true stuff. So I don't believe any lenders were defrauded in my case. Can I say every single person is innocent and nobody made up anything or nobody did anything wrong? No, I'm not saying that, but the government's theory is incorrect. Lenders are not victims.
This is the part that scares me. This is the part that makes me afraid now. I'm being genuine about that. When you go to get a loan, they ask you, like you just said, you fill out the form that's your assets and your liabilities, and you basically break it all down. And a lot of it is, you say you have a 69 Camaro, it's worth X amount. You have a Harley, it's worth X amount. You have a boat, it's worth X amount. You have this building, it's worth, and it's what you're saying. There's a genuine fear after the stuff you're seeing in the news why would you fill that out?
Right. My lawyer told me, half in jest, that you should just put on the bottom, these representations are not to be relied upon, and have somebody at the bank sign off on it, because you're seeing it right now. I mean, yesterday, Letitia James, did you see that?
Yeah.
Where Trump was going after her because she said she lied on her mortgage applications. And Lisa Cook, the Fed Reserve governor.
She actually lied on her mortgage.
Okay, so let's say she did.
She did, let's
say, okay, fine, she lied, okay? The question is that relevant to the lending decision? And does the bank have any obligation at all to do any due diligence? If we are going to start in this country going through forms that people filled out 10 years ago or 5 years ago and say, wait a minute, on line 26, you say this, but that's not true. We're going to start prosecuting all these people. Well, what's happening now?
My question is that this is my problem with it. And it's a genuine fear. Why don't we just tell the banks, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I'll give you the list of assets, you value them. You see what I'm saying? Like, why would we keep doing this if people are getting prosecuted?
Right.
I mean, and you're doing your best guess.
Right now.
Letitia's was different. She said that was her primary residence when it wasn't. That's not about values. That is a fact that a bank always will give you a special consideration.
But she already owned a house. So if you already own a house. There was actually, in our case, they claimed that some people were lying about their primary residence. One guy named Paul Lesniak bought 15 houses the same day, and he said he was living in all 15.
Right, yeah, and I'm sure they do.
So in other words, what's happening is, A, banks have no obligation whatsoever to do anything. Under the law, I'm not saying this is cool, but first of all, banks have no obligation whatsoever to check anything and can say, oh, we're duped on line 403 of this page. But the fundamental thing people should be afraid of is there is no boundary to prosecutorial discretion. Show me the man and I'll show you the crime. I guarantee you, Jim, if you give me 10 FBI agents and 5 detectives and I start going through every single form you ever signed in your life, I could indict you tomorrow.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And you could
that's
literally
point.
You could stop the next 500 cars going by I-90 or whatever this, Lorraine Avenue, okay, and get out of your car. And if this is the boundary of prosecutorial discretion, which has no bounds at all, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. The government can go after anybody. Now, you might say, well, I like Trump, screw Letitia James. Okay, fine. But guess what? When they come after you, see how you like it. So what's happening is...
No, I'm not saying go after Letitia James. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that hers wasn't. What she did was say it was going to be her primary residence. That is wrong. She shouldn't have done that. Should she get in trouble for it? I don't know. I think a lot of people do that. It doesn't much matter. But what they went after Trump for is that you specifically ask him or his accountant to put this ledger together. And when I've done it a million times, not a million, but I've done it a few times. The banks request you. Well, when you say, well, I'm not sure what something's worth, they go, well, what's your best guess? That's what the bank tells you as you're filling out the form for them. And then later that comes down and you say, I did something illegal at that point. When it's
right, I agree with you.
And they never go after the bank. I don't get it.
The bank is an innocent victim under these ridiculous prosecutions. Let me go back to that Trump case very specifically. Deutsche Bank, the lender, did not lose any money.
No, they got paid back. Yeah,
they got paid back in full with interest, and they never claimed they were defrauded.
Right.
But the government said you defrauded Deutsche Bank. So Trump is so in other words, Trump loves law enforcement. So his attitude is screw Letitia James, let's prosecute her for the same thing. But the proper solution is to narrow down the prosecutor's ability to bring fraud cases if there's no loss.
Well, I feel like Letitia James...
There should not be a fraud case in this stupid country unless there's a financial loss.
The problem with that is, though, with her, I think her going after Trump, she should be charged with something. And that judge who wouldn't allow the case to be heard the right way should be charged with something. But
judges generally rule for the prosecutor and limit the defense. That Angaran or whatever, he would not let Trump bring in certain experts to say the bank didn't lose money. Oh, you can't say that. But that happened to me. But Mark Bennett said, you can't blame the victim.
But
you
it
can't
didn't affect the election of the United States.
No, but what
may or may not have, I don't know. But what they did was try to affect the federal elections for the president of the United States. They were effectively trying to affect that with some bullshit rules.
So let's prosecute.
So, and you got arrested and went to prison for bullshit rules. And I'm not making that small. I'm just saying what they were doing was a bigger play than just Trump. It was the nation.
Let's hold prosecutors who break the law accountable.
That's what I'm saying. Yes,
let's not prosecute more people for mortgage fraud for forms.
No. That's what I said. That judge and her should get in trouble for what they did, because what they did was her. And I agree with what you're saying. These, I don't know which ones who all gets involved in that gets, but somebody should definitely, if they lied and left out evidence, somebody should go to jail. I mean, at least lose their job.
Yes. Let me
lose
give you
their license.
Let me tell you the cherry on top of this mortgage fraud nonsense. In our case, and these mortgage fraud task force cases, there's over 1,000 people. Like, we get our stimulus checks. We didn't get a stimulus check because I owe the government $46 million. I stole $46 million. They have these liens against me. I don't get a tax refund. They take it. The government has collected $20 million in restitution on behalf of crime victims. Okay?
From who?
Me and 1,000 other people they prosecuted.
20 million?
20 in Cuyahoga County. I have the ledgers. It's on the free TonyViola.com website, evidence locker. $20 million. How much of the money that the government has collected on behalf of JP Morgan Chase and Washington Mutual and all these supposed victims, how much of that $20 million has been sent to the bank? Zero. There is a money laundering scheme going on right now in the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Cleveland. They are taking people's money and they are using it for what? Dan Caceres gets money from the Crime Victims Fund. U.S. Air, hotel rooms, laptop computers for prosecutors. We went to jail.
Well, he lost his.
Well, it happens. Did your office manager die mysteriously? Time to throw the computer away. So there is a money law. So the problem with these mortgage fraud cases, when there's no victim and you're prosecuting a case on behalf of a victim who said they didn't lose money, the government's saying there's losses, there's not actual losses, and restitution is being collected on behalf of the victim, but the victim's not getting the money. It's a giant slush fund to do what? To pay informants. This lack of accountability is a serious threat to the public because the public...
And the informant could be your girlfriend.
Could be a girlfriend. The fact is the public should have confidence in law enforcement and in prosecutors. And this type of stuff of using false testimony and all the stuff with Dawn is destroying the confidence. Anyway, we don't want to sit by and say, okay, you guys did this to Dawn and we're just gonna forget about it. So our goal is to have a proper investigation into what happened to Dawn and accountability. And all these ancillary issues and these mortgage fraud technicalities are problematic, but it's not the core issue. And it's not why we've gotten traction in our crusade. It's mostly about Dawn, and how she was treated is wrong. And we are standing up and saying that this is inappropriate for a young lady to be asked to wear a wire and do this illegal undercover operation. She wasn't even an undercover officer. She had no undercover training, and they're having her record defense sessions, and it's absolutely outrageous. And something went wrong in her apartment. She did not die a natural death. She was planning on coming to court to testify.
Yeah, and that's a big deal, because by you saying that, I mean, that there's only one person that's being insinuated here, or well, not one, but there's one office that's being insinuated that would have caused that. If you say you don't think it was suicide, you're saying you believe it's either the state, federal, or county prosecutor's office got rid of her.
Or they sent somebody in and something escalated. That is not a natural death. Where's her computer? Yeah. Something happened in that apartment. And by the way, had it been investigated properly at the time, I mean, why is this a giant cover-up? Okay, I mean, why not collect the fact that they didn't collect the surveillance video, didn't collect the cell phones? They called a mortuary service, not an ambulance, to her apartment.
Oh, you're kidding me,
no,
really?
In Parma, they pronounced her dead several times. This girl's dead, dead, dead. So the whole thing does not make sense. The Parma police, a guy named Detective Traxler and Dan Syriac, told Ed and Karen, Dawn's folks, that they were going to send the file to the Ohio Cold Case Unit. And the Ohio Cold Case Unit said the case should be reopened. But then Parma changed their mind because the law director and the safety director are buddies with Caceres. Oh, we're not giving up the file now. And the cold case office can't take it unless the city gives it. The Cuyahoga County Sheriff reviewed this case and said that Parma bungled it and it should be reopened, and gave a list of witnesses that should be interviewed and actions that should be taken now, and nobody's doing anything.
And unfortunately, some of it's just not there. Camera footage or neighbors that who knows who was there.
Right, but we may be able to get cell phone footage or geolocated, who was there. I mean, there are things that are witnesses. There's witnesses that claim they overheard discussions about Dawn's murder. Somebody called the FBI tip line and said Dawn was murdered, and Mark Bennett and Dan Caceres were talking about it. So, I mean, we've gotten a pile of evidence. We hired Kim Corral, our lawyer. She hired an expert pathologist, a guy named Dr. Peter Mazzari, and he went through the whole thing and found all kinds of mistakes in the medical examiner's report and all kinds of things that can be done now to get the case properly reviewed. So the folks in Parma, Ohio, have spent more time telling us why they won't do it than just either get it out of your office and then have it investigated properly, or just they should have done this a long time ago. But now...
But do they have things documented? Like, is there any kind of bruising on her or anything like that that would suggest that...
Yes.
There is.
Dawn's neck was bruised, and when she was at the funeral home, at Repepi Funeral Home, they had to keep putting makeup on because her face was swollen. It's indication of a possible struggle or possible waterboarding with alcohol, these marks. It's very rare to have rigor mortis on your neck, so something happened in her apartment. I don't exactly know what happened. What I do know is we have more than enough evidence to have this case properly investigated.
And it's not suicide.
It's not suicide.
Was she dating anyone at the time?
Not really. She had broken up with a person, so there was no... It's not...
That puts him as a suspect immediately.
Okay, maybe.
I mean, it does, though. I'm not saying that but it does. It just
Cold
does.
cases get solved.
Yeah. Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. But a lot of it helps when you have a good investigative detective come in immediately.
Yes, it would have helped.
They let a lot go by not being. That sucks. That's absolutely horrible. If they didn't get the camera footage, they didn't talk to the name. That's horrible.
Right.
And that's not fair to Dawn. It's not fair to, I mean, it's just not right. It's just, that's
There was
unacceptable.
58 law enforcement officials that investigated my real estate company that I thought was a mortgage company, but nobody could spend an hour collecting evidence in Dawn's apartment after she was found dead or call an ambulance. So this is aggravating to say the least. But the thing is, a core function of government is to determine if a death is natural or not, right? I mean, like, what's more important? I mean, these guys are doing all this nonsense with fraud and mortgages and all. It's ridiculous. This is a young lady who's dead,
Right.
and nobody cares. And Dawn was brutalized in life and treated terribly in death, and we just won't tolerate it. I mean, we feel there should be a proper investigation into what happened, and it doesn't matter if Dan Caceres doesn't want it. And so we are finally getting the word out. I appreciate the chance to be on your show where finally people are taking notice and saying, hey, wait a minute, you know, this case should be reviewed. And by the way, you're right that they didn't do anything, but we've been collecting evidence forever. We've got piles of it that we have found, and people have sent anonymous tips, and our investigative team has gone out and talked to people. So we have quite a bit of evidence that, you know, we want to turn over to a proper agency for a review. But the way Dawn was treated and threatened is wrong. You know, witnesses should be allowed to come to court. If you want to testify in open court, you should be able to. Supposedly in America, you can come to court and tell your story. And Dawn told me she didn't want to talk to journalists. She didn't want to go on TV. She wanted to come to court. And she did say that Judge Daniel Gall, who was a judge at the time, she said he's fair. He'll let me he'll let me testify.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So she felt
She
that
had a lot of confidence in him.
that he would let her say what she wanted to say.
I'm going to show everybody Dawn real quick.
Oh, please do.
I'm going to give them a little peek at Dawn. There she is. Beautiful girl. She's got
my friend Dawn.
She got pugs or
she loved animals. She
Yeah.
was a huge fan. That's her pugs. She used to volunteer at the Parma Animal Hospital. She loved cats too, but she was a big fan of dogs. And if you go on the justicefordawn.com or the Facebook group, you'll see her with dogs all the time. More dogs than people, I think. But she really was an animal lover. She's a really cool person.
Yeah, I'm a dog lover. I got a little Frenchie. So
Oh, nice.
I
Okay.
usually bring it. Well, you seen
Oh,
it the
yeah,
other
yeah,
day.
yeah. Oh,
you
is that
seen
your
it the-
dog? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
My little bar talk hoodie. But
absolutely.
no, that's a shame. I mean, it's so you definitely don't think suicide's in the game.
No.
You think it's either she made somebody else sore or them.
Yeah, I mean, women don't usually drink themselves to death. I mean, women who commit suicide, they might do pills or something like that. But I don't really think if you want to kill yourself, you're just going to go to the CVS and get a cheap bottle of vodka and just guzzle it.
Did she have any other drugs in her system? No, like what do you call uppers or whatever that would allow her to take in more alcohol or something?
Nope.
Because the amount of alcohol they said was like 5.3
It's
something or whatever.
astronomical.
And I was reading up about it. It's like I started reading. I go, how many shots would you have? I asked ChatGPT, how many shots would you have to take to get to 5.3? And it said that we're not going to have you harm yourself. We're not giving you that answer. If you're having help, speak with a therapist. That's what it told me.
Yeah.
That's a true story.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So then I went to Grok, and Grok gave me the answer. Grok said that it would have to be at least 16 to 17 shots in an hour.
Wow. Well, the thing is, too, is that if let's say she was heavily drinking, she was clothed, she's wearing, a decent pair of jeans and a belt and a top. In the pictures, there's no vomit. I mean, like if I started let's say I did 17 shots. I mean, I guarantee you, I'd be, pissing and throwing up, and I mean, it would be a different scene. Her apartment's immaculate.
Yeah.
So it just the apartment scene doesn't match what they're saying, and that in and of itself is grounds for question.
And what time of year was this?
This was April 25th. We looked it up. It was a pretty nice day outside. About 70 plus degrees, and the heat was cranked up and the window was open. So the heat being cranked up may have accelerated rigor mortis. It may.
What do you mean by cranked up? Like
it's like 85 degrees or something
Jesus.
like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So it doesn't make sense. Her thermostat was cranked up and the window was open. The apartment just doesn't. The scene doesn't match the notion of somebody. Like you'd be falling all over yourself, or you'd probably be in bed, wouldn't you? She's like fully clothed. If you had that much alcohol.
Yeah, I don't know how you could do it. I really don't. I don't know what. I don't know. The only thing I could think is you would have to just constantly check. But I would think that they would, the toxicology, I would think they would be able to tell if it was forced into her.
They
or if
could
she
have, but
was-
they didn't test for it. So, for instance, if I waterboard somebody with alcohol, it would have, even if you hadn't eaten in many, many hours, it would have forced undigested food down to the lower extremities of your intestines. So you could test to see if she was waterboarded with alcohol and to see if undigested food was in your system. They never did that.
Oh,
Let me give you another example.
that's what I just said. If you had better police on the job.
Right. No, there should have been right when this happened. And the working theory is that Caceres or somebody told Parma, don't do anything. I mean, there's even officers that didn't want to sign the police report. There's a lot of red flags in this case that indicates that the responding officers may have, done stuff, but were told not to. So we're hoping someone comes forward. Somebody knows something. It's never too late to do the right thing.
I always believe that. I always believe in the laziness of people. I think is more, if you show up, and I'll give you an example. My brother, and I don't think anything happened with him. He overdosed. He had that lidocaine patch on his back, and he did coke, and apparently the two don't mix. I don't think he knew that. I don't think anybody knows that. But when it happened, there was no investigation. Once we got there, he was already purple. He had been missing for a day, didn't answer or whatever, and he had turned purple. The ambulance showed up, and they just looked and said, "Yeah, call the coroner," and that was it. There was no real investigation.
I'm sorry.
So I can't believe that 100% that's the case. They may have just looked at the situation, and it may have looked to them like, that it was alcohol poisoning or
Possible.
they might not even have thought alcohol poisoning. The officers that came in that day may have thought it was fentanyl or heroin or anything. They don't know.
Well, the issue, too, is, remember, two things. One, Dawn was supposed to be in court, and that's not noted anywhere in these reports, so that's a problem. And then secondly, Dawn was threatened. I have it in writing. I mean, her folks have given sworn statements that they were threatened if she comes to court, that she was told to leave town. I have an email from Dan Caceres that says if Dawn comes to court, she will be put in prison.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm sticking up a little bit for the Parma police. I'm just saying maybe they were just lazy.
Okay. So, but what I'm saying
that's all I'm saying.
But what I'm saying, maybe, who knows? I wasn't there, so I was in jail. All I know is if I threaten you, and then God forbid you're found dead the next day,
that never looks good.
It doesn't, and at a very minimum, and God forbid this would happen, but I mean, at a very minimum, somebody should say, Tony, what was that all about? Like at a very minimum, somebody who threatens somebody immediately before their death should be questioned. What in the heck's going on?
Would make sense, yeah.
And she's supposed to be in court. So, I mean, there's just multiple.
And I'm sure at the time her parents had to have reached out and said, hey, she was getting threats. She came to live with us. Nobody looked into that.
Nobody looked into it. The medical examiner ordered them not to come, so they were not allowed to come to see the body. Then when Ed Pasela, Dawn's dad, was at the apartment, they wouldn't let him in. They would not let him in. They would not let him see Dawn. They restrained him outside of the apartment. It's like 6 officers restrained him and said, you cannot go in.
Well, I could understand that if it was like a suicide, like maybe somebody blew their head off or something, and it's just you don't want to see this. But if you overdosed on alcohol, I think you should be allowed to see that.
I agree you don't want to tamper with the crime scene. From a law enforcement perspective, you can't have people running through.
No, I'm not talking about there. I'm talking about at the coroner's office.
Oh, I understand. The coroner, that is very fishy, and the police should have at least let the family see her.
Sure,
not touch anything, not do anything.
At least identify her.
Or at least they restrained him. I mean, it's beyond belief. Listen, let me tell you something. Ed and Karen Pasela have gone through something no parent should ever go through, and they have been treated terribly. Terribly, and this is their daughter. This is very wrong. Nobody in the government has ever apologized. Are
they afraid that somebody's going to come after them now? If they keep pushing the envelope?
I think when you lose your daughter, you just get to a point of not caring. The old saying: if you take everything away from a person, they have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
When I had my business and, I was financially successful and I had all those employees and a beautiful office and offices in Florida. Topaz. Yeah, I had everything. I had something to lose. I mean, when they threaten me now, I don't care.
Yeah, right.
What are you going to do? Go ahead. I'm not doing anything wrong. So anyway, but the way they've been treated is just terrible. Yeah. This is their daughter, and Dawn was, if you met, you would like her. She was just such a great person. She's just interesting to talk to. She's a brilliant person, and she knew a lot about every topic. You could throw some topic at her, and you could go on. And she was really very empathetic towards folks. She had her antenna up to people, and she really, like I told you the story when we were out, a couple times things like that would happen. She was just absolutely fantastic. I'll tell you a story. One time she was telling me what was going on. We met at a place called Marco's for a slice of pizza, Marco's Pizza in Parma Heights. And she was, we were kind of, I was like, how could you do this to me? And she's telling me I'm stupid. Why would you tell your trial strategy? And all, we were just kind of hashing it out a little bit. And then at some point it kind of got emotional. She started crying. And this dude, went up, saw her sitting with me, in tears. And he's like, you want me to kick this dude's ass? Is he bothering you? Just every time I was with Dawn, there was like always some crazy
Somebody
story
ready to
or
jump
something.
on her.
Oh my God, she was absolutely gorgeous, and people would go crazy. So anyway, but she was a very good person, and it's very sad that she's not here. She would have made the world a better place. My friend said she's going to be the governor one day. Like when we first met her, we thought, wow, she's got the world by the tail. She's really very vivacious and brilliant and fun to be with, and just a very intelligent person. And
Did she have an alcohol problem at all?
I think that this stuff of wearing a wire did cause her alcohol and addiction or whatever, depression issues. I think she did struggle. I think that they crushed her soul with all this stuff. She's in law enforcement. She went to school for it. She's excited about it. And then she felt guilty about wearing a wire. She thought innocent people were going to jail. She thought it was her fault. She didn't know exactly what to do. She was afraid of these folks. She wanted to come forward. So I think what happened was it was a combination of things that overwhelmed her. But the last time I saw her in person, before I was put in prison, when we were preparing for court, I was worried about her because she seemed a lot skinnier than she had been. She's always very petite. And she just seemed very fragile. I guess that's a word that I would use. So this really took a toll on her, and she never should have been inserted into this case, and she never should have been asked to wear a wire. But I think even though I tried to say, Dawn, I'm not mad at you. You're coming forward. You're trying your best. It's all good,
Well, she was so young.
She was
and
so
she's
young.
just trying to make her career.
Yeah, she was ambitious.
Yeah.
She had this plum job. Listen, the task force office manager job she had, she leaped over a lot of older folks that had been there quite a long time.
And if you were guilty of something, which she might have thought at first,
She probably did.
you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I'll help them out, whatever. We're just getting criminals put away.
Right.
Until
Oh,
she
that she
figures
thought so.
out. Yeah,
Right.
until she figures out you're not, then all of a
Right.
sudden it's a problem.
But she had the weight of the world on her shoulders, and it wasn't fair. But you couldn't convince Dawn of much, but I couldn't convince her to just not have this guilt. I was like, listen, yeah, I would have done the same. That's what I told her. If I was you and this was my first real job and I was trying to get ahead and they asked me to go have a slice of pizza with I would have done it.
Yeah.
So, but that didn't compute with her. The way she looked at it was she should have stopped doing this a long time ago, and that all these people were going to jail, and she had the power to stop all these prosecutions. And that's something I was not able to relieve that burden from her. It's very sad.
Yeah, that is horrible. I just hope that the answers get found out.
Yeah, her family's entitled to answers.
Yeah, I think so. I think the answers should
Or
be
at least
found
an
out.
honest effort. Even though it's a long time ago and whatnot, an honest law enforcement effort by an independent agency that doesn't know who anybody is and doesn't care about anything other than Dawn. Forget Tony's case, forget all this crap. Let's just talk about what happened to her. She deserves that. Her family deserves answers. It's the right thing, and we are advocating for it. We're very lucky. Kim Corral, our lawyer, is representing Dawn's family and advocating too. She's the one who's gotten a lot of these records that we wouldn't have gotten. She's the one who told Parma, the Parma police, they said, oh, this Tony guy's crazy. And she said, oh, yeah, I agree. Let's have the sheriff look at it or something so I can tell these people to go jump on the lake. Well, the sheriff looked at it and said it should be reopened. So she's the one who sort of maneuvered through the system to get us the Mazzari report with an expert pathologist and gotten the records from the sheriff, even from Parma, that they didn't want to cough up some of the records, and she was able to do it. So we're lucky.
That's the go-to move, is when somebody is against the system. That's the first thing they do. Is he's crazy. He's
Right.
a nutcase. He's a kook.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the big move.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
you've seen it happen.
Sure.
They did it with they've done it with everybody, Dave Chappelle or Kanye West right now. But I mean, you know, whether they are crazy or not, I don't know. But it seems like they're always doing that to somebody.
That's a common thing. And also labeling people criminals, felons, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I think the Justice for Dawn group is too big. It's not going to just peter out, and there's too many good folks helping us. We had Seeking Justice, which is a investigative crew looking at cold cases. They did a season-long investigative series. I mean, we've been able to attract really well-intentioned, smart people. Yale Law School, you know, Kim, our private investigator, Bob Frederick. We've got a really good crew. And of course, we're trying to build public awareness with our websites and our social media.
Oh, yeah. I think if the story got out there, it should be as big as the girl in Italy that disappeared.
Amanda Knox?
Yeah, Amanda Knox. Yeah. I mean, it should be. I mean, if you're talking about somebody who was going to basically turn on the prosecutor's office in the biggest mortgage scandal case in American history, ending up dead the night before her trial.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Like Amanda Knox just ended up dead. There was no hearing that she was supposed to be to. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a bigger story. In my opinion, it should be a bigger story. That she ends up dead under suspicious circumstances when she's supposed to be in court. I mean, that's mafia shit. That's crazy. Yeah. That's absolutely like, that's absolutely nuts.
It's scary. It shouldn't happen in this country. And if your daughter works for the prosecutor's office, you shouldn't be fearful for her life. There's a lot of wrong things here. And I do think that we will ultimately get towards justice. But that's why I appreciate you, talking about this with me, because we need to get the word out. You know, Dawn was in a very prominent position. A lot of attorneys knew her because she was in meetings with the prosecutor's office. She was at a lot of court hearings. There's people inside the prosecutor's office that knew her. There's defense lawyers that knew her. There's private investigators that knew her. There's a lot of people in law enforcement, in the Ohio Attorney General's office where she first worked. So we think somebody knows something. And people can submit an anonymous lead to the website. You don't have to leave your name. Seeking Justice, the ladies that did the investigative series, you can do that. You can reach out to our attorney, Kim Corral. So there's ways for folks to send us tips, and we've gotten quite a lot. So not only should the story come out, but we're pretty confident. You know, Dawn wasn't like some work-from-home data analyst that was by herself in an apartment or something. You know, she's interacting with lots of people all day.
Yeah, right.
And so there's a lot of people who knew who Dawn was.
Yeah, and the other thing with that is that it's probably not okay, because you got to find out, or you have to get all your ducks in a row before it does go national. You want, if it does go national, you want to know what you're saying is facts and what's going on and what was there and what wasn't there. That story needs to be told. It absolutely 100% needs to be told.
Right.
That's horrible.
Right.
How long you been out of prison?
So I was released in 2020 because when they said they lied about evidence, but they said you got to be on this ankle monitor, and then they cut it off a couple years later. So since 2022, I would have been in jail, I think, through 2023, the federal sentence, and then I would have been without Dawn, I would have been convicted at the second trial and probably had another maybe 10 to 15 years to go in prison if I would have lost the second trial.
Who's in charge of vacating your first trial now?
Well, Don Nugent is a criminal. I mean, the federal judge is up to his eyeballs in shenanigans, and I'm not going to go into all of it right now, but he's been talking to these prosecutors without my lawyer present. He should have conducted hearings that he failed to do, and he won't do now. He should have had a hearing after Dawn's death. He wouldn't do it. He's been made aware that this restitution is not going to the victims. He's ignored it. He's covering for these prosecutors, so it's a tough nut to crack. But we are winning in Pennsylvania, where I was imprisoned, and that Yale Law School case is in Pennsylvania. So it's not clear if it has to go back to this particular judge who's very hostile. But the judge at the second trial, Daniel Gall, he said in writing that I'm innocent, and there was prosecutorial misconduct in the case. So one judge says I'm guilty, the other judge says I'm innocent. One jury says I'm guilty, the other jury says I'm innocent. Don Nugent refused to give me 2 hours. I didn't even ask to be released from jail. I asked for 2 hours to put the proof of my innocence in front of him. He wouldn't do it. I'd never been back in his courtroom since I was federally sentenced, even though the FBI said they lied about evidence, even though there was a second trial where I was exonerated on the same charges, even though the federal prosecutor was disbarred and fired, even though the Justice Department said they lied about evidence. So this is a real issue.
So again,
in federal court that these
who is the one who has to vacate that first? Who is it?
the Justice Department could do it any time, or a federal judge.
The federal department.
Yeah, I won my state case. I don't have a
Okay.
state conviction. I won.
Okay.
So there's a federal conviction. So the Justice Department, anytime Pam, Bondi, or any of these characters feel like doing the right thing, knock yourself out. In any federal court, we have to petition the courts, but they don't want to hear it. The courts do not like my case because it questions the integrity of the system. If I said I'm guilty, but I stole a little less money than you think, okay, cool. They'd write a 46-page opinion. We'd have that lickety split. The reason it's taking years and years right now to get anywhere is the federal courts particularly do not like cases that question the integrity of the system itself or the
But isn't
theory
that
of the
what
case.
Pam Bondi is there for?
What, to protect the federal system?
I mean, it should have been Matt Gaetz, but
It should have been Matt Gaetz.
yeah, it should have been Matt Gaetz.
It should have been Matt Gaetz.
But isn't that the point? Isn't that what Trump was supposedly doing? He's bringing in these people that are going to shake up the system and find all this bullshit.
Well, let's hope.
Pam
They can do it
Bondi, get to
anytime.
work, Pam.
They fight us tooth and nail. They may say that on national TV, but on a document by document or pleading by pleading case, they fight us tooth and nail. The U.S. Attorney's Office here. The problem is there's so much shenanigans. This is a Pandora's box.
Yeah, because the problem is that it's Pam Bondi here, but all those other players are still just employees that've been there for 100 years.
Right, and unless some big dog says, let's throw this guy's case out, they're not going to do it on
Right,
their own.
right,
They're not going
right,
to stick their neck out.
Right.
Having said that, nobody is left in the government other than Caceres that has a personal interest in the outcome of my case because all these people are onto something else or retired. So one good thing is that someone could do the right thing at this point because they're not personally involved. So Mark Bennett, before he was fired and disbarred, he was handling all of the post-conviction litigation. He lied repeatedly in
Wait, he
federal
was
court.
disbarred?
Fired and disbarred.
And he was who now?
The federal prosecutor.
No kidding.
Fired and disbarred.
For what?
Lying about evidence. They blamed him for lying about evidence in my case. He sexually assaulted an intern in the U.S. Attorney's Office. He started buying jewelry for married employees. He attacked a server at that FBI agent's retirement party. There's a whole
Jesus
thing on our
Christ.
website. The guy's a criminal. And he's up to his eyeballs in wrongdoing about Dawn. He's been caught lying about Dawn. So, I mean, there's a lot of, he said she wasn't wearing a wire. I made the whole thing up. It's insanity. Then he said, as soon as I knew she was wearing a wire, I told the FBI to give the tapes. But the government has said there are no tapes. Then he said, wait a minute, where are these tapes? So there's all kinds of litigation ongoing. Mark Bennett could be arrested today.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that son of a bitch put you in prison.
Yeah.
Oh, doesn't that piss you off? Do you, I mean, is the anger there
Well,
or is it just a drive to fix the system?
you know, I would say two things. First of all, I'm Catholic, so you got to kind of, I believe in eternity. I believe, you know, everything will be corrected. If we can't do it on earth, God will correct it. It gives me some faith and peace of mind. And also, I'm not the only person that got hosed, right? I'm not the only person that was wrongfully convicted or the government screwed over. I mean, so, you know, you have to have some perspective about it. I mean, yes, it sucks. It's a lot more fun running a company, you know, than it is to be in a jail cell. But at the end of the day, hopefully something good comes of something bad.
Were you married when you went to jail?
No, but I was serious with a young lady, and I told her to.
She's gone now.
I told her to go. You know, she wanted to have kids and get married, and you know what? I said, she's like, "Oh, you don't want me to wait?" I said, "Oh, selfishly, yeah. I want you to go to Target and buy yarn and knit, do needlepoint. Is that what you do with the?" Yeah. But I said, "No, I can't make you do. Who knows what's
Plus,
happening?"
not only that, you come back after 12 years, and if she was dirty, you worry about that. It's just easier to find a new one at that point, right?
Well,
I mean, that's a rough, like, come back and, like, I mean, I'm glad you waited, but, you know, I heard a rumor, like, fuck that, no thanks.
I looked at it a little differently. I looked at it like the government's already ruining my life. I don't want them to ruin more people's lives, and I wanted the girl to be happy.
You're a
I
better
said,
guy than me.
just be happy. I didn't really think, gee, you're dirty, so I don't know. I don't know about that, but whatever.
My uncle always said it feels good to stick it in someone else's, but it hurts like hell when they stuck it in yours.
Okay. I'll buy that.
That's a Kentucky advice I get.
Okay. All right.
So,
But, you know, I think if I was an angry, bitter person, I mean, what to who? To my friends? To my mother? I mean, like, how is that going to get me anywhere? No one wants to be around an angry, bitter person. So I think the thing to do is to channel the frustration and say, we're part of a cause bigger than ourselves. We don't want this to happen to anyone else. we don't hate law enforcement, but we want there to be proper accountability. And we want to have answers of what happened to Dawn. Who told her to wear a wire? Why? Why was there such a desire to win this case that the government was willing to do all these illegal things? At what point does somebody in the prosecutor's office say, no, that's a bridge too far? We're not going to wire up the administrative lady. Like, there's got to be some line that it's too much. It's too much.
Yeah.
And there also has to be some boundary on prosecutorial discretion, like with these ridiculous cases where you lied on this form, you lied on that. There has to be, I believe, otherwise every single person could be put in jail, and it's random. Just whoever doesn't like somebody, they're going to go to jail because you lied on some form. There should be a victim's loss. If a bank or a person loses money, if I break into your bar and I steal money out of the cash register, that's a loss. I stole money that's not mine.
Yeah.
But the idea that, well, Deutsche Bank didn't lose any money and actually got paid back in full, but there's fraud. No. But the solution is not to prosecute more people. The solution is to narrow the...
I thought that was the case. I thought there always had to be a victim. I always thought that there had to be, like... that
There should be.
Yeah, I just assumed that that's how it was until that Trump thing. When they were like going after somebody who got paid back for a mortgage, I'm going, what?
Right.
And I was shocked by that. Like,
and these banks are
absolutely
not...
shocked.
These banks are not unsophisticated players, and there should be some due diligence obligation, even if they charge you another fee or whatever. But you're exactly right. You want to know what the 69 Corvette is worth or whatever? If you think that's such a big deal, then you go appraise it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you where it is, or I'll show it to the guy. You figure it out. And I agree, putting this on the borrower and then later having somebody go through and say, aha, you lied on this line. Some of it is discretionary, like what your car is worth. It could have a range of value, or it could change in value over time.
Yeah.
I mean, some cars gain, value over time. Sometimes they're not as popular as they were. It depends on the era. So the thing is, it's ridiculous for these banks to be innocent victims. But if the poor innocent bank is a victim, you basically can prosecute anybody you want. And that's too much authority in the government.
Yes. And I think it's too much. I think it's too much for you filling out a loan application. It's their application. They give it to you. They ask you the question. If they don't want to look into it, that's on them.
Right.
That's their decision.
Right. Exactly.
That's the way I see it.
Yes. Agreed.
Anything else you want to get out there?
Well, just real quick, if anybody's interested in this, feel free to reach out. freetonyviola.com. It's about my case. You can sign up for emails. We don't send that many. And you could be a guest blogger. So if anybody listening has ideas or you want to share a story, we have guest bloggers on there all the time. So feel free to do that. And if you want to know more about Dawn, justicefordawn.com. It's got a link to a change.org petition. There's almost 7,000 folks that have signed that hold these prosecutors responsible. You can join our Facebook group, the Justice for Dawn Facebook group. You can post your thoughts. You can come to our events. We have rallies and events. Kim Corral speaks. She's extremely eloquent, and she speaks out for Dawn all the time. So you can stay in touch with us that way. So we'd love to have people help. And then the other thing you can do, we need people in the government. I don't care what their role is. I don't care if they're a city council person. I don't care what municipal job or federal or state job they have. We welcome anybody in our government to issue a statement that Dawn's case should be investigated. We don't need you to say that Dawn was murdered. We don't need you to say anything like that. We just need you to say the case should be properly investigated by an independent law enforcement agency. So we are asking people in the government, community leaders, to join us and issue a statement on their letterhead just saying, please, the documents are on there. The independent pathologist report is on Justice for Dawn in the evidence locker. The Parma police reports are on there. The letters that Kim has written, everything is on there. So take a look at it. And if you do feel that there should be a proper investigation, we welcome any government official to join us and say as much or come to one of our events.
What could it hurt to have a prosecutor? What could it hurt? What could it hurt to have a real investigation?
What if it was your daughter?
God,
what if it was your sister or your wife, God forbid?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're asking. And we're not asking for somebody to say, oh, there's a murder here. No, we're just asking for a proper review. So that's what people can do. And so we do hope to hear from folks. And it's not a one-way street. We do welcome, feedback or guest bloggers or whatever. So folks can share their thoughts or opinions anytime. We can go live on Facebook with somebody if they have something to say. So reach out to us. All our contact information is on there.
And when you hold the rallies, you post that on Facebook?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We had one on Dawn's birthday, which is June 25th, and Kim spoke at Wrongful Conviction Day. Wrongful Conviction Day is a perfect thing perfect opportunity to highlight Dawn because she was trying to stop wrongful convictions. I mean, at the end of the day, she said, I don't hate the police. I just think they should turn over the proper evidence. And I don't want innocent people to go to jail. She said, I'm okay with guilty people going. I just don't want innocent people to go. So Wrongful Conviction Day has been a nice event to honor Dawn and have justice for Dawn as part of that, because that's what Dawn fought so hard for. And to honor her memory, we feel like we should continue that legacy.
All right, I like it. So there you go.
Thank you.
Anybody
I appreciate
wants
you.
to get involved.
Appreciate the chance to be on
It
your
was
show.
awesome. It was great talking with you.
Thank you.
All right, we're out of here.
Jimmy on the pod, solo act, no quitting. Madhouse bar talk, where the drinks stay spitting. Views going wild like a monkey gone rogue, running his own lane in a circus of smoke. Guido hit the eject, dipped out the scene. Jimmy steered the chaos, kept it lean and mean. No co-pilot needed. He thrives in the clash. Controversies, the stash. Raking views with a dash. Madness on the mic, sipping truth like it's gin.